I'm Ed St. Clair, Vice Chairman of the Planning Commission, and I call the August 20, 2020 meeting of the Farragut Municipal Planning Commission to order. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone, as we've done meetings prior to this, that we are again conducting our meeting remotely through WebEx, through the Governor Lee's orders and the Knox County Health Department's orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. The meeting is being broadcast live on and can be viewed on Charter Channel 193 or TDS Channel 3. Mark, would you call the roll and record the members present?
Yes, sir. Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams present.
Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin present.
Commissioner Russ.
Commissioner Russ is present.
Commissioner Green.
Commissioner Green is present.
Commissioner Dick.
So far, she was logged in earlier.
Commissioner Dick.
I think you're muted, Betty.
Commissioner Dick is present.
Commissioner Myers.
Commissioner Myers present.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Commissioner Bellamy present.
And Chairman St. Clair.
Apparently, they did the club seats before they did the, regular stadium seats.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tim and Leland already know that they have club seats for 3 games.
Somebody
And they
needs
were not
to
given a choice of
themselves.
which 3 games, and they're out of town for one of the games.
Yeah, some other participant.
Yeah, we've got somebody that, one
The
thing
other
I'll
option was
mention,
for 2 games.
everybody please you need to mute yourself so that you can't be heard unless you need to say something.
Yeah, of course, I'm present, and I think Austin was here too as well.
Austin is also here, yes. The youth representative, Austin Strobel, is here. And I will have the record show that Chairman Holliday is absent for this meeting.
Okay. Item number 1 is the approval of tonight's agenda. Mark, are there any changes?
There are no
The
changes.
other option was for 2 games.
Motion to approve.
And I said, but probably 2 games that they choose for you.
I second that motion.
I don't know who that is.
We have a motion and a second. And Mark, would you call the roll?
Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes.
Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, yes.
Commissioner Russ.
Commissioner Russ, aye.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Dick.
Yes.
Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Myers.
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
Chairman St. Clair. All right. Motion passes 8-0. Motion does pass 8-0.
Thank you, Mark.
Not sure what's going on there.
Did we lose you, Ed?
Yeah, must have lost him.
Ed's muted.
Look like we lost Ed.
Yeah, he's muted.
No,
Hey, Ed, you're muted.
I'm not muted now.
There
Okay.
you go. You're
I
back.
don't know how I got muted to start with.
Okay.
Moving to item 2.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mark, would you call the roll and record the vote?
Taking your truck in the morning?
You're going to go with me.
I am.
How am I going to get home?
And we take it in before
Coming
then,
in on
because I'm
this.
gonna go for a walk.
Who's talking about a truck?
Hey, yeah, somebody's.
Please move.
Not
please.
muting yourself. Yeah.
Can we take it in tonight and just drop it?
Can you mute that person? I don't know who it is.
I can't tell who it
I
is.
don't think so.
Call in user 4 is Alderman Meyer, and call in number 2 is Mr. Bellamy. I don't know who 3 is and who 5 is.
All right, let me go ahead and proceed with the roll call on the
Yeah, let's give
minutes.
it a try. We'll just muddle through this until we can figure it out.
Mayor Williams,
Mayor Williams, yes.
Vice Mayor Pavlin,
Vice Mayor Pavlin, yes.
Commissioner Russ,
Commissioner Russ, aye.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Dick, never heard.
Commissioner Dick, yes.
Commissioner Myers,
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, the record shows minutes passed by a vote of 8-0.
Okay, moving to our next item. Item 3 is discussion and public hearing on a site plan for a dog park at the Overlook at Campbell Station Road, 820 North Campbell Station Road, Zone R6, OSMFR, PDI Architecture applicant. Mark?
Sure. This is kind of a minor site plan for the Overlook apartment development north of the interstate. This is actually back in the development. If you remember, there's 2 apartment buildings that were constructed that are under construction on the north side of the drainage way that goes through the property. This dog park, you can see the location there. There's an access street that goes down to the 2 lower units, and the dog park is on the side of the access way that connects the majority of the apartment development with the 2 buildings to the north. It's a roughly 24 by 42 dog park. It'll be fenced in, obviously. There'll be a drop-off point along the access drive. Obviously, this will be used only for the residents of the Overlook as kind of an amenity for them. This is increasingly something that's expected in multifamily projects. So the staff does recommend approval of this site plan, subject to there being an as-built, and as part of their as-built verifications for the overall project, that they verify compliance with the stormwater control measures. There is a drainage way just below the dog park, and we all know what dogs do, so we need to make sure that there's controls in place that keep that from entering the drainage way. And then also making sure that the handicapped accessibility standards are met for this type of activity. So with those conditions, the staff recommends approval of the site plan.
Okay. Is the applicant present and have any comments?
This is Paul Folger, representing the Overlook. Mark did a great job of explaining what we're trying to do. Basically, it's just a fenced area so that residents' pets can exercise.
Okay. Any commissioners have any questions, comments?
How is the vinyl coating fence?
I'm sorry.
I couldn't understand you, buddy.
Commissioner Dick, how is the vinyl coating of the wire? We don't,
I think she's asking about the vinyl coating chain link fence.
yes.
Yep. Paul, can you answer that for her, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't understand the whole question, but it's basically a 6-foot tall vinyl chain link fence that is similar to what's used throughout the property. We chose the 6-foot tall so a pet could not jump that, or at least the pet that we allow on the property.
Well, President Trump's former advisor, Steve Bannon, arrested today. Now, Bannon is a former Hollywood producer.
Would whoever has their TV on behind,
which he was
please
arrested.
mute or get off the line,
Who hasn't
please.
worked for the administration in years, is an entrepreneur. He is now accused of using donations to build a wall at the border.
The participant
That
labeled,
newscast on.
this is John Green. The participant labeled as owner shows some voice coming off the.
I just took care of that
Thank you.
through the host computer. I wasn't sure who it was, but was hoping that was not going to continue, but obviously it did.
Thank you, Mark. Let's see, go ahead, back to our question on the chain link fence. We got to be flexible, right, tonight?
Well, I'm assuming it would be black coated chain link fence, like Paul said, what they have in some of the other parts of the development.
So it's already in other parts of the development. Mark, where do they have it elsewhere?
I'm trying to remember. I think they have some around retaining walls. You really can't see any of them, as best I remember from Campbell Station Road. I think they're all internal.
Yeah, Mark, they are all internal. The big retaining wall behind Building 1 between our property and the mobile home park, it runs across that retaining wall. Also at the water retention area behind Building 3, we have it on that retaining wall. We also have it back between Buildings 7 and 8, which is in the back of the property.
So it's consistent with what's on the site.
That's correct.
Okay. Any more questions or comments from the commissioner? Any citizens provide any comments, Mark?
No, sir, not on this item.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Mark, would you call the roll for the vote?
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pavlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Russ,
Aye.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Dick,
Yeah.
Commissioner Myers,
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
Vice Chairman St. Clair. All right, the motion passes 8-0.
Thank you, Mark. Item number 4, discussion and public hearing. Item number 4, discussion and public hearing on a request to rezone the property at 11824 Kingston Pike, parcel 025, tax map 152C, Group J, 1.81 acres from Office 01 to General Single Family Residential R2, Troy and Evangela Starbucks. Mark?
And I do have one citizen comment on this. I'll read it later.
Okay.
This was reviewed last month as a workshop item discussion. The property has originally, it's got a house on it, but it was converted to an office several years ago and is currently zoned office. And the new property owner is wanting to rezone it, this office tract, to residential R2. And that would be consistent with the Linda Heights subdivision and the Farragut Crossing subdivision that are to the south of the project. It's also consistent with the town's future land use map for that area. So for those reasons, the staff does recommend approval of rezoning through resolution PC-20-07, which would approve ordinance 20-12 for consideration by the board, mayor and alderman.
Okay. Is the applicant present and have any comments?
I am present. Yes, I don't have any comments. Unless you have any questions, I'm happy to.
Okay. Can you give us your name and address?
Evangelist Stavros, and our address is 120 Chaho Road.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the commissioners? There being none, do I have a oh, you had a citizen comment. Just go
I
ahead.
have one, yes, sir. I have one citizen comment. It's from Jim Gwynn at 11903 Burnside Place. And he is the president of the Farragut Crossing Homeowners Association, and I represent approximately 200 homes. Our subdivision has some concerns about the rezoning of this property from an office to single family. If the request is approved, we would like to have a condition added to the request that no driveways would be allowed to connect to Federal Boulevard, and all road access must continue to go through the current access to Kingston Pike between the bank and Chamber of Commerce. If direct access was allowed to Federal, the owners would have to go up Federal Boulevard and make a U-turn at the intersection of Farragut Crossing and Federal in order to reach Kingston Pike. We've seen this in the past, and it has caused unsafe situations at that intersection. We also have concerns of having 3 houses on that property based on the size of the proposed lot changes. We believe that 2 houses would be more in line with the neighborhood based on the size of the lots and would not be opposed to that option. Thank you for your time and consideration. Jim Gwynn. I would comment on that, on his comment, that will be a matter that we'll be looking at when they submit a subdivision plat. This particular item is specific to the rezoning only. And like the staff mentioned earlier, we feel that the rezoning request is consistent with the plan of development to the south, and it is consistent with their future land use map. So for the rezoning itself, we do recommend, again, approval of this.
So in other words, Mark, what you're saying is his letter is a little bit premature.
It's a different matter. Yeah, it's not really related to the rezoning. It's something that we would look at. There actually is an access off of Federal currently into that property. And it's kind of a circuitous access through the parking lot of the bank. So we haven't had a subdivision plat submitted for formal review yet. So we'll just have to, review that when it comes in and get the Planning Commission's input at that point.
Okay, I'm going to move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Myers, I'll second.
Thank you. Mark, would you call a vote? Roll call.
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pavlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Russ,
Aye.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Dick,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 8-0, and we'll go to the Board of Mayor and Alderman.
Okay. Well, that's some comments that we can look at when that comes back with a site plan. So that's good.
Yep.
We'll move on to item 5. Discussion and public hearing on a request to rezone parcel 021.03 and a portion of parcel 021.01, tax map 153 from rural residential R1 to general single family residential R2, 7.35 acres, Rackley Engineering applicant. Mark?
Yeah, this also was discussed last month as a workshop item. And as you may remember, there was some discussion about access to Spring Branch Lane, which is actually a street in Inverness. It was platted as part of Phase 3 of Inverness. That plat provided for the lot that was originally the subject of the rezoning to have access to it. But it was pretty apparent that would be for a driveway, not an extension of a public street. So we talked with the applicant about trying to work with the property owner to secure an access onto Turkey Creek Road, which they have made some headway on that. And I think they've got kind of general agreement at this point. They've actually already submitted a preliminary plat for this property. And you can see the amended rezoning map there. The little black line was the original tract, and now they've added about half an acre that would access Turkey Creek Road. So as far as the rezoning itself, similar to the previous item, the request is consistent, with the surrounding zoning. Most of Inverness is zoned R2, and that's what they're requesting for this property. And it also would be consistent with the future land use map as far as the development density that they would be able to realize on that property. So the rezoning itself, the staff would recommend approval through resolution PC-20-08 for ordinance 20-13.
Thank you. Is the applicant present and have any comments?
Yes, this is Russ Rackley, the applicant. I have no additional comments based on the workshop meeting last month and the desires of the commission and the public opinion. We were able to amend our purchase contract with Ms. Goen for the additional half acre with frontage on Turkey Creek Road, so that we could alleviate any connection whatsoever to Spring Branch Lane. And Mark is right. We went ahead and submitted a preliminary plat in hopes that this would all progress forward to try to stay on our desired timeline to getting the 10 lots that we propose in there on the ground.
Okay. Well, Russ, glad to see you could work it out. But could you also, just for the record, give your name and address?
Yes, certainly. I'm sorry. Russell Rackley. P.O. Box 30456, Knoxville, Tennessee 37930.
Thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions? Comments?
I have a question. Russ, this is Liz Goblin. Will you have to do an amended plat or a re-subdivision that will require another plat? I'm just trying to get clarity here.
Well, we can do one of two things, Luis. We can, because it would be a 2-lot into 2-lot plat, just to adjust a lot line between the 2 lots that Ms. Goen, the 2 of the 3 lots that Ms. Goen currently owns.
Yeah.
I believe that, and Mark could correct me, I believe that could be administrative, or we could, as shown on the preliminary plat we submitted, we make that adjustment with a single plat, where we adjust her lot and at the same time as dividing the other 10 lots off. So we can go either way. We've already done the boundary survey and the field work. It's really up to the town on what they would desire, and I think we can sort through that on the preliminary plat process.
Okay. What the other thing I would like, I guess what I'm asking is because I would like language that removes the vehicular connection from Spring Branch Lane. Is that something we could do, or is that needed, or you guys tell me?
Well, actually, that is I requested on the preliminary plat submittal I made Monday for the September Planning Commission meeting. I requested a variance from that subdivision regulation requirement of vehicular access. So I believe that will handle it. But if y'all want to do something different, then just let me know.
Well, and I guess I'm just asking for the residents there. That would give them some peace of mind that someday that wouldn't come back and all of a sudden have vehicular access there. So that's all I'm looking out for their concerns. So either way, for me.
Yeah. Right, and during the workshop, I was fairly adamant, maybe to much to y'all's chagrin, about making sure it was on record that the town did not want any access to that, because in our renegotiation with the property owner, we didn't want to tell her we needed to do something different in order for her to realize the value of her property, and then the town require us to do something different. So I believe we memorialized that in last month's discussion that there is no desire whatsoever to connect to Spring Branch Lane, and we're fine with that. We don't want a connection to Spring Branch Lane. I believe I am showing a sidewalk connection from the end of our cul-de-sac to the cul-de-sac around Spring Branch, just for pedestrian, which will come up next month during the preliminary plat review. But I feel like that we're in a good place, Luis. But if there's something else that needs to be done, we'll be happy to do it.
That's the only concerns I had. I'm good.
This is John Green. I have a comment.
Go ahead, John.
On the property, on the addition of property, that little leg that comes down to Turkey Creek Road, the existing residence on that property has a driveway, and that driveway pretty much goes in the center of that little addition you put on there. How's that going to work? So that driveway is going to go elsewhere, or is that going to be onto that property, or how's that going to work?
The existing driveway will connect to the public right-of-way, the new public road that we are proposing to connect off of Turkey Creek. So
Okay.
we will maintain access through construction, and then her driveway will get realigned to access directly off that new public road.
Good answer. Thank you very much.
Hey, Russ, this Commissioner Russ. I just had a question too, and this probably not necessarily pertains to the zoning, but on the plat that's been submitted, is there an access onto the Inverness Greenway from that lot?
No, as I mentioned, we're proposing our sidewalk at the end of the cul-de-sac, which is adjacent to the Spring Branch Lane cul-de-sac in Inverness, a sidewalk connection to the sidewalk on Spring Branch Lane, which is approximately 100 feet from the Greenway Trail that goes from Inverness over to the primary trail that parallels the Briarstone Lane. We're trying to maintain what tree buffer we can, and it's not heavily treed there around the Spring Branch roundabout, so that seemed to be the best place to put a connection without having to do a lot of clearing and grading.
I got you. Thank you.
There's a little bit of a drop off at that same point too, so have to navigate that. I guess we'll see that next month in the preliminary plat.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Mark,
That's correct.
any more comments from the commissioner? Questions?
Motion to approve.
Wait a minute. Were there any citizen comments, Mark?
There were no citizen comments on this one, no.
Go ahead. Mayor, you want to make the motion?
Yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Mark, would you call for the vote?
Mayor Williams,
Mayor Williams, yes.
Mayor Povlin,
Vice Mayor Povlin, yes.
Commissioner Russ,
Aye.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Dix,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
and Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 8-0, and this will go to the Board of Mayor and Alderman for first reading.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, everybody.
Moving on to item 6, discussion and public hearing on an amendment to the Farragut Municipal Code, Chapter 22, Article 5, driveways and other access ways, Section 22-150, specifications, permanent access, Item 2, access to and from property being developed as it relates to circular drives on corner lots with more than 350 feet of total street frontage, town of Farragut applicant.
Yes, sir. This item was kind of introduced as an issue last month when you all reviewed a variance request for a circular drive that was, I guess, graded in Village Green subdivision. And it was noted as part of that review that in the ordinance that governs accesses, which is our driveways and other access ways ordinance in the municipal code, there's a provision in there for lots with less than 200 feet of frontage to have a circular drive option in lieu of a single access. as long as they meet there's several design criteria in the ordinance that the circular drive would have to meet. It also provides for, on a corner lot, you could have up to 2 access points. So what we talked about was, in the applicant's case, they have a corner lot and it has a significant amount of street frontage, in this case over 350 feet. And really just kind of making the language of this part of the ordinance more clear, and to provide for an option for those that have a corner lot and a significant amount of frontage, in this case more than 350 feet, to have as one of their permitted 2 accesses a circular drive as an option, provided that that access meets the criteria for circular drives that's provided for lots that front on one street that have less than 200 feet of frontage. So as part of trying to modify that language in our municipal code, I really just rewrote the whole thing because the more I got in there and looked at it, I wanted to make the whole thing more clear. Currently, it references, it has some language that I thought needed to be a little bit more, clear as to what its intent was, and to not use an asterisk as to refer to some element of the ordinance. So what I propose is to actually create in the table that was part of the ordinance a clarification that on local streets, and those are generally your streets that are interior to subdivisions, you still have the 1 access point, and you got the circular drive option if you got up to 200 feet of frontage. And I just spelled that out in the actual table, so it was real clear that that's your options. And then if you've got more than 200 feet of frontage, up to 800 feet, you still have the 2 access points that you would be allowed. Then if you have a circular drive, you can use that as one of your 2 accesses. And you don't have to meet the criteria for circular drives on lots that have less than 200 feet of frontage. So they could be wider access points, for example, on those lots, because those are going to be bigger lots with more frontage. And then addressing the condition that was before y'all last month, where you had a corner lot with a lot of frontage, to make it clear that they still get their 2 access points, but one of those 2 access points could be a circular drive if that's what they wanted, as long as they met the criteria for the circular drives. And then kind of spell that out below the table real clear in the 2 sections B and C that follow the table. So that's what I'm proposing in this section of our ordinance, and I'll be happy to try to answer or clarify any questions y'all may have.
From the commissioners?
No questions from the mayor. Good job, Mark. Real good job.
I have none either.
Not hearing any more comments. Yeah, we did a good job on this, Mark. And I think it'll serve us well. And no question. Any citizens' comments by any chance?
No, not on this one.
Okay. Do I have a motion and a second?
I'm going to move.
Approved. Second.
I'm sorry. Who motioned to approve? Was it Scott?
Mayor.
Oh, Mayor. Okay, Mayor Wood.
Thought it was the mayor. Yeah.
Okay, second was Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Mark, would you call the roll?
Sir, Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Podlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Russ,
Commissioner Russ, yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Dick,
Aye.
Commissioner Myers,
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy,
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
and Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 8-0. 0. So we'll also go to the board of mayor and alderman.
Thank you, Mark. Moving on to item 7, discussion and public hearing on amendment to the Farragut Municipal Code, Chapter 113, Tree Protection, Section 113-4, applicability as it relates to provisions for utilities, Town of Farragut applicant. Mark?
Yes, sir. This item came about as really to try to add some provisions and clarifications in our applicability section of the tree protection ordinance. That's a section in our ordinance that exempts certain activities from the requirements of the tree protection ordinance. And there's a couple of sections in the existing language that's pretty general, and we thought that those needed to be more clear. So some of the objectives in Ordinance 2015 were to try to make it clear that even though you have these things that are listed as being exempt from the tree protection order, they still may require some coordination with the town staff to add that language in there to differentiate between existing utilities and planned utilities, underground and overhead utilities. There is a concern, obviously with some of the utilities that depend on like an aerial transmission. We don't want that to result in trees in our public rights of ways and easements abutting the rights of ways to be, topped and butchered basically so that they can get an adequate reception. So we wanted to include those as being governed by the tree protection ordinance, and then clarify, similar to what I did in the previous ordinance, really just looking at the section from scratch again and just clarifying anything that maybe needed to be more clear. And then one of those is making it clear that vehicular and pedestrian infrastructure that is exempt from the tree protection ordinance would only be the public vehicular and pedestrian. If it's developments that are internal to projects, they would still need to be reviewed for compliance with the tree protection ordinance. So in Ordinance 2015, I think I actually do have that language on the screen. Obviously, the changes are in red that are being proposed. And it gives us a lot more review options, particularly for certain utilities than we currently have. It's pretty broad right now, and they're more or less all exempt if they're within the platted rights of ways and easements. So this kind of clarifies, underground utilities, they are exempt, provided that, if you're doing maintenance for those, because they're already obviously in place. If you're actually installing a new underground utility and it's not shown to be more than 36 inches in depth, then it would be subject to a review from this aspect of our ordinance. It doesn't mean that you would deny it necessarily, but we would want to look at that because that utility would be potentially in critical root zone of trees that may be nearby. So, and that may require a review ultimately by the Planning Commission. The same way with the maintenance of overhead utilities. The only overhead utilities that would be completely exempt from a tree protection ordinance with this language would be maintenance related measures to those utilities that exist prior to passage of this ordinance. Any other new overhead utilities would fall under the applicable provisions of our ordinance. It doesn't mean we will, be able to deny them. It just means that they'll be reviewed for compliance with our tree protection ordinance. In that clarification I noted earlier there in 4, the construction and maintenance of public streets and public pedestrian facilities, so that it's clear that private facilities on private property would still be subject to the tree protection ordinance. So that's what I'm proposing in this section of our tree protection ordinance, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions if anybody has any.
One question I have is that we've got two major pipelines that run through our town. And what about the applicability to this to their right of way? I think they got a lot of federal standing to do. I mean, literally about anything they want to do in that right of way for vision, being able to do aerial.
Yeah, they may be exempt under the supremacy clause, that particular utility, and those lines are pretty deep, and they're going to be, if they're doing maintenance, which they always do in those easements, that's exempt, and it's exempt under this language. If for some reason they were going to, and I don't know why they would do this, but they were going to present a plan for installing a new line and it wasn't 36 inches in depth, I mean, we'd have to review it anyway through our review procedure requirement, for new utility extensions. So it's still going to have to come through review. And in the case of what you're talking about, there, tree cover in there is kind of a completely different requirement set because, they really do need to minimize the amount of tree cover and root invasion potential that those lines could encounter. So that particular type of utility wouldn't really be affected by this.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the commissioners?
I have one. The first sentence, the following activities shall be considered exempt from the requirements of this chapter, but can we drop the word may, but require coordination with the town? That way someone doesn't come in and say, well, it may not. I don't think it does, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I want to do. So can we drop the word may, that they have to at least come and talk to us? It sounds like KUB came in and was maintaining something and lopped off a bunch of trees on Kingston Pike. I'm not sure if they were invasive. Certainly, we would have liked to have coordinated with them to make sure they weren't taking out trees that mattered to us. And so we need to be a little bit clearer about that. How about, does that work, Mark?
That's fine with me. Yeah.
This is Commissioner Myers. I agree. I don't like the word may in there, but personally, I think we need to differentiate between utilities and construction of individual single family detached. Historically, if you build a home in a subdivision, you are not required to go through the tree protection ordinance. But now we're kind of saying, we're opening the door to say you're building a home in a subdivision and you now are going to be required. So I think we need to remove out the ones in red, basically lines 2, 3, and 4, and talk about coordination with the town, but continue to exempt 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
So how do you propose to do that in this language here, Noah? Even if, but here, correct me if I'm wrong, when you guys are constructing, when you're constructing individual single family detached and 2 family dwelling units on individual lots, you still have, do you have to do a tree inventory?
No, that's only at the subdivision stage.
Okay.
That falls under basically, if you're subdividing a farm into a subdivision, yes, you have to do a tree inventory, and there's certain requirements for certain trees over certain sizes that have to be inventoried and go through a replacement process.
Okay.
But not with building a single family home, or I don't have any experience with duplexes, but
okay.
with that either. So I think all of a sudden we're creating another layer of bureaucracy for a builder or a homeowner to build a home in the town, because now we're saying we now require the coordination with the town. Now the town staff can say, oh, don't worry about it, you're good to go. But I think that's not the intent. The intent here tonight is to address this issue with utilities and within the right of ways and platted easements. It's not to create another hardship for a homeowner to build a house.
Okay, so here's what I'm hearing you say. We probably need 2 separate paragraphs here. One that says the following activities shall be considered exempt from the requirements of this chapter, and label out 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then the next paragraph says the following activities shall be considered exempt from the requirements of this chapter, but require coordination with the town.
That is exactly what I'm saying.
2, 3, and 4.
Hmm.
Well, 4 is pretty. You're just making that 2 and 3 need to be under this.
Yeah, 4.
4 needs to be.
2 and 3.
I think 4 should also require coordination with the town.
Okay.
And we've done that with developers. If let's say they're putting in a walking trail, typically we'll have a requirement, a subject to say, hey, you need to coordinate this with the town within your platted open space or easement, and hopefully the intent is to save some big trees. And so, but I think 2, 3, and 4 need to be coordinated with the town. I just think 1, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 should remain the way that they've been for a long time, and that is exempt from the tree protection ordinance. Mark, is there something I'm missing here? I mean, but it seems like all of a sudden you're going to get a lot of phone calls. These are the tree protection ordinance says I need to coordinate with the staff on this. What do I do? I'm trying to eliminate some headache in your office.
Yeah.
Well, that's honestly why I had the word may in there.
Yeah,
So to give us some
changed the meaning.
flexibility.
The word may is eliminated.
Yeah.
That's why I had it in there. It would give us kind of some latitude at the staff level to, I don't expect individual home builders to check with me at all on the tree protection ordinance. That was not my intent with this. Like you said, it was really to clarify certain utilities and give us a little bit more protection in our public rights of ways, especially for public trees, because public trees are actually listed as protected trees in our tree protection ordinance.
Well, and you know how I feel about it. I mean, I got up and battled for the I-40 trees with a Top Golf, and so I really think we need to separate this out. I think putting the word "may" in there is a dangerous word. It creates a lot of ambiguity for somebody from the outside looking in, trying to understand our requirements.
Yeah, it needs to be separated.
Yeah, that's easy.
The word "may" out. An individual homeowner is not going to want to go back to the town for removal of a hazardous tree. If you get
and I agree. It gives more clarity to what it is we expect to have. It requires additional coordination with the town. So
I mean, honestly, number 4, I don't even know, they're going to coordinate with us on that because they're building public facilities. So obviously they're going to be coordinating with the town on that. I think 2 and 3 are the ones that, and we may need to say shall on that. We need to think about it.
Yeah, I think that's where you want to have teeth.
Yes, I would.
I prefer shall.
We may need to add shall for 2 and 3 and clarify that, you really don't have to coordinate on the other ones. So although, it is something that, and the reason I had it in there originally, for all of them, is really, I have run into issues with people cutting down a tree that was supposedly hazardous or taking out supposed invasive exotic pest trees, only to find out when I went out and looked at it that they had some that might have been in that category, but they had some others that weren't, and that was pretty clear. So it would have been good in those cases for them to have coordinated with the town on those. So, I agree with Noah that my intent certainly is not to require coordination with home builders, but some of these other ones may need coordination with the town staff, or at least have that language in there so that if somebody does, go out and take out a bunch of invasive exotic pest trees that they said was that category of trees, that we really at least need to know about it in that case. So I need to think about that. And really 5, 6, and 8 really needs to be coordinated with the town. We had recently a tree farming operation to the north of Fox Run and Saddle Ridge in the town, and they did coordinate with us. I wasn't particularly happy to see it happen, but they did at least coordinate with the town. They presented a plan for what level of plan that they needed for that work, because they are exempt essentially under the state law. But they did at least coordinate. So it may be that in looking at this in more depth, 1 and 7 are the only two that may not need it. 1, 4, and 7, may not need to be coordinated with the town. 4 is going to be coordinated with the town.
I would agree with what you're saying. When we were out with that tree farming, they were going to be a little bit more aggressive with that sinkhole.
Yes.
And
That's
it
right.
wasn't until we came in and told him, no, you cannot get in that sinkhole. And he was rather disappointed because there were some trees in there he wanted. And it was only because we were there to tell him, do not touch that
That's right.
he backed off it. But otherwise, he would have gotten into the sinkhole. So I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, I think 1 and 7 probably we could clarify.
I agree with
So,
Mark. But I think number 4 should continue to require coordination, because all of a sudden we're telling a developer, hey, you're going to go build streets in a neighborhood. Oh, and we're exempting it right here. But then on the other hand, we have a tree preservation. So really, I think the only thing that should continue to be exempted would be number 1 and number 7.
That works for me.
so if an individual homeowner has a problem tree, either hazardous or pest like pine beetle or something like that, they can remove or do what they want to with those trees under number 7. Is that right?
Well, I guess if it's less than an acre, yeah. But if all of a sudden, like what Mark's saying, they're doing a wholesale clearing and they're trying to call them all, exotic pest trees or hazardous trees, that needs to be coordinated with the town.
Okay, I think that's probably a fair break point.
So 1 and 7 would be removed from the coordination requirement, and then the others would. I can divide that up. That's an easy change.
So can we move to approve with that amendment?
I have a question. I have another question.
John?
Yeah, we're talking about residences here. What about homeowner association common property? How does that fit in there?
They're not exempt. They're not exempt.
Yeah, an HOA, if they're cutting trees on open space, they need to coordinate with the town of Farragut.
They specifically have to comply with the ordinance. Yeah.
Okay.
They always have had to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. Any more comments?
I'm going to move to approve with the proposed amendments.
Second.
Who seconded?
Williams.
Okay, thank you, Ron. Mark, would you call a roll?
Well, let me clarify one thing. Do you want the word shall to be in there for the ones that will require coordination?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The others shall require coordination. Okay. All right. Mayor Williams.
Mayor Williams, yes.
Vice Mayor Baldwin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, yes.
Commissioner Russ.
Aye.
Commissioner Green.
Aye.
Commissioner Dick. Commissioner Myers.
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
And Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 8-0 with the amended language discussed.
Moving to item number 9, is discussion of using the planned commercial development PCD zoning district for the redevelopment of the old Kroger property, Farragut Town Center at Middle Farms, parcels 3.02, 3.03, a portion of 3.18, and a portion of 3.19, tax map 143, 45 acres, site incorporated, applicant. Mark?
Hey, Ed, actually, we got agenda item number 8 is next on the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Microbrewery. Okay. Item number 8, discussion and public hearing on a request to amend the Farragut zoning ordinance to permit microbrewery and brew pub, Carlos Cortez applicant. Mark?
Okay. I'll review this here. Basically, we talked about this last month, and all that we're proposing at this time is to create the brew pub as a use and define it. And since the brew pub references microbrewery in its definition, we define it as well. And then we are providing for in the zoning districts where we would recommend that this be permitted use, subject to the minimum requirements that are included in this ordinance. And those relate to screening, storage-related equipment, basically the loading areas, making those screened, and conditioning, the use approval on the Farragut Beer Board's approval, because they're going to have other requirements that the beer board looks at, and that would be a condition of approval of. So that's really all that we're proposing in Ordinance 2016. It's a pretty simple ordinance from that perspective. But most of the specifics are going to be handled in the beer ordinance through the Board of Mayor and Alderman, but they will have to obtain approval from the board as a condition of the use that would now be permitted in different zoning districts in town. We talked last month about what zoning districts you all would feel comfortable having this as an option, as a permitted use, and it's pretty much all of our commercial zoning districts, the mixed-use town center overlay, neighborhood convenience commercial C1, C2, and then the Outlet Drive Regional Entertainment and Employment District over north of the interstate. So that's kind of a quick summary of what we have in this ordinance, and I'll be happy to try to answer any questions anybody may have.
Is applicant present and have any comments?
I'm not sure if Carlos is here on the call or not.
I'm on the call.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any comments? Carlos, do you have any comments?
I have a question for Carlos. We have in the write-up, in the ordinance, it says, loading areas in a newly constructed facility shall be screened with opaque materials and shall not be visible from adjacent rights-of-way or residential districts. Where are you guys, if you guys are doing this, where are you going to have your loading area?
So nothing's been finalized at this point, but I think that from what we've shown folks in the past, we're anticipating converting one of the garage spaces into the brewery. And so the loading space would be on the back side of that, kind of where the food trucks would have entered.
Okay, so it's inside. Your loading space is inside then?
Yes.
Okay, so you can meet this requirement then?
I believe so.
Okay. I just wanted to check and make sure that we weren't making it difficult for you before you even got out the door. So, okay, that's all I have.
I appreciate that.
This is John Green. I have some comments.
Go ahead, John.
The definitions that are here for the microbrewery and the brew pub, I don't have any trouble with what it's trying to say. I have trouble with the way it's being said. For example, the first line of each song starts out almost identical. So it's not obvious from the first sentence or two what you're looking at. I proposed a rewording, tried to use all the same words, but in a more logical manner. And my microbrewery starts out with a limited output facility for the small blending, fermentation, blah, 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 blah. And then all the words that it has there. And then for brew pub, it starts out as an eating establishment, which includes a microbrewery for the manufacture, building, fermentation. And when I read those definitions, I had to reread them 3 times to figure out that what I was reading actually was for the microbrewery. What I was reading was actually for the brew pub, because each definition includes the other word in it. In other words, microbrewery includes brew pub, and brew pub includes microbrewery. So I really thought it would be helpful to say right off the bat what it is, what the facility is. In other words, a microbrewery is a brewing facility, and a brew pub is really an eating facility.
So put the distinction between the two right up front.
Yeah, right up front, and otherwise, it can say what it's trying to say there. I submitted my wording to Mark, and I think he gave that to Trevor. So if Trevor's here, I don't know if he's had a chance to look at that, if he's in agreement or disagreement with me. But I really think it's not clear. It wasn't clear to me reading it, and I'd been to several meetings where we talked about what they were, so I kind of knew what they were anyway. But I had a hard time getting the words to say that. So I think it can be clarified.
I would agree. It's almost like we went in circles and circles and we didn't quite define what it is we're supposed to define. And because the brew pub is an eating establishment, but it's a brew pub because it's eating and it has a microbrewery. And a microbrewery is a separate, you would need the blending, fermentation, processing, packaging, distribution is a microbrewery activity, not necessarily a brew pub activity.
Yeah, if you'd like, I can read you my total definitions. If you'd like.
Please do. Please read it.
Okay. Microbrewery, a limited output brewing facility for the small scale manufacture, blending, fermentation, processing, packaging, and distribution of beer or malt beverages. Such a facility will be co-located with a brew pub and allow for on-site consumption, sale, and limited wholesale distribution. All on-site consumption shall be on the premises of the associated legally permitted brew pub establishment. The brewing facility shall be licensed by the state of Tennessee and shall meet all regulatory and permitting requirements of the town of Farragut. And I think I've captured all the words that were in there, just in a different order.
Yeah.
In a brew pub, I said an eating establishment which includes a microbrewery for manufacture, blending, fermentation, processing, packaging, and distribution of beer or malt beverages. The eating establishment involves the preparation and serving of food to seated patrons, including the on-premise consumption of the beer or malt beverages, to include those produced at the on-site microbrewery. The facility shall be licensed by the state of Tennessee and shall meet all regulatory and permitting requirements of the town of Farragut.
I think that gives it more clarity. I appreciate your work, John, because it's hard to untie that and figure out what it needs to say. So,
well, my question to Trevor is: does it still say, in the end, does it still meet the definition that you intended, or did I misconstrue something?
John, this is David Smoke. Trevor's not on the call tonight, but he and I did discuss this a little bit. The only issue with the brew pub is that the food aspect of it is a minor one. When you look at, I know this is not the planning commission, it's the beer board and the board of mayor and aldermen. They'll be discussing this next, but it's a small portion is going to be food sales versus alcohol sales. So we just wanted to make sure that there was some kind of division there of the two, making sure it's still a brewery, microbrewery with food sales attached to it. But I think your definition certainly captures the essence of that.
I have to agree. It does. I like John's definition.
So it's what we need to wordsmith is not necessarily the microbrewery description, his definition. It's the brew pub definition. Is that correct, David? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think we were just trying to establish that the first thing that a brew pub is going to do is be a microbrewery, and then it's also going to serve food.
Okay.
So if you look at that first sentence of the definition.
Why don't we change my first sentence to say an eating establishment and or the other way around, a microbrewery establishment and eating establishment combined that manufactures, blends, ferments, blah, 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 that way, if you'd like to do that.
I agree with John's. You got muted there, John. I agree with what John is trying to, because it gets confusing. The brew pub you got to define microbrewery, and then the brew pub is, I mean, you don't even necessarily, since you've defined microbrewery, why do you have to redefine microbrewery in the brew pub? If you've defined it and a brew pub includes a microbrewery and a food an eating establishment, the microbrewery was already defined above. We don't need to redefine it again in the brew pub. I think that's where I'm getting lost. I don't know why we need to redefine it when it's already defined above.
No, I do think that's a good point, Louise. I think if we go with Mr. Green's definition and change it slightly to, I'm going to do my best here. It could be a brew pub includes a microbrewery that also serves food. I think that helps define that right off the bat.
Yeah, operating in conjunction with an eating establishment.
Yes.
That's the language in that. That works.
Yes.
We could take all of that, the definition of microbrewery out of there, since we've already defined what a microbrewery is.
You could say something like in addition to that, and then go to the definition. You get the point across that you're basically just adding the other feature.
I've got an observation here. Down in the ordinance, I cannot find where we actually mention microbrewery. We just talk about brew pub. Do we necessarily need to define the word microbrewery when we've kind of defined what we want? We actually didn't want a standalone microbrewery. We're going to allow a brew pub, which is a microbrewery / restaurant. I'm just wondering if we're making this more complicated than we need to. I'm wondering if you read this just like it is with just the definition of a brew pub, and then through the ordinance, which I'm reading, would it stand alone and make more sense?
Well, I think the thought, and I might be stepping out of line here because I wasn't really involved in this ordinance preparation that much, but because the word microbrewery was referenced in the brew pub, which we did need to define as our permitted use, we needed to be clear on how we wanted to treat the term microbrewery. And maybe the ordinance does that through the language of the ordinance itself, like you're talking about, Noah. But that was the idea, was microbrewery is defined in each community differently. And we wanted to make sure that it was clear how we wanted it to be treated in our community. Now, maybe the ordinance language can deal with that just by reasons that we have, because the use that we're providing for now is the brew pub. It's not a microbrewery. Microbrewery is an element of a brew pub.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think it hurts to have it defined personally.
Yeah, this is John Green again. Yeah, when I talked to Trevor yesterday briefly about this, he said that was their intent. They got the definition of brew pub all worked out, and then they realized they had the term microbrewery in there, and they thought they really need to define the microbrewery so that there wasn't some debate on what a microbrewery was.
Yeah.
Not to play the devil's advocate here, but when we're using the terms small scale and limited wholesale distribution, and the last thing I'm trying to do is muddy the water here. I mean, should we spend any more time further defining what small scale is? I mean, whether it's square footage maximums or something like that. And maybe this is a non-issue when it comes up to microbrewery. Maybe there's no desire for a 20,000 square foot microbrewery, and maybe that's what we want. I don't know, but I'm just wondering, when we're using these terms in the definition of microbrewery, if we're just opening ourselves up to further interpretation by a future applicant.
Commissioner Myers, actually in the what we'll have is in the definition of the beer ordinance, we will define a cap or a limit for the square footage that a brewery or a microbrewery could be, a brew pub, and also even a percentage of food sales to beer sales that have to be made for that.
Perfect. Okay. So you guys have just got it covered. We just don't have to. Well, the good news is we don't have to worry about that here at the Planning Commission.
Right. You're just talking about the zoning areas where you're okay with them being zone 2.
Okay.
as a use.
Gotcha.
That discussion came up earlier, no, in one of the staff developer meetings on what the separation of what the beer board was going to cover under their ordinances and what we were doing with the planning commission. So that,
I think the logic was that it has a lot more teeth if you have the restrictions in the permitting than in the ordinance.
right, exactly.
I agree.
Any more questions, yes, from the commissioners?
None.
By any chance, were there any comments from the public?
No, not on this item, but I need some clarity on what you want to do with the language, the terms, whether we want to go with John's language or kind of restructure John's language. I just need to be clear on that.
I think the language that we have for the microbrewery, I liked John's verbiage for the microbrewery. I think the brew pub can be simplified by simply saying an establishment licensed by the state of Tennessee, meeting all regulatory and permanent requirements of the town of Farragut, which includes a microbrewery in conjunction with an eating establishment involving. I think that would solve our problem right there with the second definition.
Yeah, I'm writing this down.
I got a question for Carlos, the applicant. How quickly is he trying to get clarity on this? I mean, personally, I'd like to see these new definitions in writing because my note taking lacks some skill tonight. But if Carlos is trying to get some clarity in a short period of time, then we can move forward. If he's not in a hurry, maybe we could get this on next month's agenda.
And Carlos,
I think
you need to understand it has to go through two readings at Board of Mayor and Alderman after it goes through the Planning Commission. So that will be the delay. It would be it's not just a month out. It's then two more readings for the Board of Mayor and Alderman after that. So
well, we're trying to. I think our intent is to try to get open in the November timeframe to be able to serve beer and so on. Not necessarily brew. It'd be so I don't know how that plays in with the schedule here, but it sounds like it would push up against that time frame.
Carlos, Mayor Williams, the way I understand it from our previous conversations was that you could not get this microbrewery equipment by the time you're open anyway. So
yes, sir. Yeah.
I don't think it's going to affect your.
But it would still have to be. He would have to apply to be a tavern then, and then he would have to turn around.
Tavern piece.
And then he'd have to turn around and apply to be a brew pub in a couple of months. And I assume that there's financial payments that go with that, some fees that go with that. And I would hate to make them spend more money because we couldn't get this clarified in this meeting.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was
something solid.
Kind of my point. There is some cost to do the extra permitting.
Yes, and we don't need to do that to them.
I think he needs to have solid evidence from us on going forward with any dealings he has to have with either permitting, financing, or anything else.
I'm comfortable with John's what John has proposed. I think that we could, if we need to wordsmith it at first reading, we could do that.
I agree with Louise. I'm okay with that. If all of a sudden there's something funny, we'll leave it up to the beer board. I guess I assume it then. No, actually, this one won't go to the beer board. It'll go to Board of Mayor and Alderman, and we'll let you guys deal with it. But I'm okay moving forward tonight. It's just a little weird to vote on something I don't have
100%
exact language on.
Yeah.
Mark, can you read that exact language?
I don't. The exact language right now I'm gathering is John's proposal. Then, if y'all want to make that more clear at first reading in the term of the brew pub, then that could be we could you gotta look at that a little bit more in depth before it goes to the board for first reading. But I believe it's just going with John's clarifications on those two definitions.
I would say this. I agree with John's definition for microbrewery. I would simplify our definition for brew pub. As I read it off, I said an establishment licensed by the state of Tennessee and meeting all regulatory and permitting requirements of the town of Farragut, which includes a microbrewery operating in conjunction with an eating establishment involving the preparation and serving of food, blah, 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 blah. So basically all you're doing is taking out for the manufacture, blending, fermentation, processing, and putting in, which includes a microbrewery, and then you can pick up with operating in conjunction.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that makes.
Louise, you want to make a motion to that effect?
I'm going to move to approve with the proposed amendments from John Green and for the microbrewery and my amendments to the brew pub language.
Commissioner Myers, I'll second.
Mark, would you go ahead and call the roll for a vote before the?
Yes, sir. Making some notes here. Mayor Williams.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pavlin.
Vice Mayor Pavlin, yes.
Commissioner Russ.
Aye.
Commissioner Green.
Yes.
Commissioner Dick.
Maddie?
Commissioner Dick. Okay, Commissioner Dick. There we go. Commissioner Myers.
Commissioner Myers, aye.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Commissioner Bellamy, aye.
And Vice Chairman St. Clair.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 8-0, and we'll go to Board of Mayor and Alderman for first reading.
Now we'll go to item discussion of using the planned commercial development PCD zoning district to redevelop the old Kroger property, Farragut Town Center at Biddle Farms, parcel 3.02, 3.03, a portion of 3.18, a portion of 3.19, tax map 143, 45 acres, site incorporated applicant. Mark?
And I do have some citizen comments on this item, and I'll get to at the appropriate time.
Okay.
But just to give you an overview of what we're trying to discuss tonight for this workshop item. As you know, last month we conditionally approved a conceptual master plan for the town center at Biddle Farms. Basically what you see on the screen, the revised village square there in between the commercial and the multifamily portion of the project. The project itself, we've talked about its location and its kind of unique physical characteristics. It doesn't abut any existing residential neighborhoods. It does abut 3 major arterial streets and has a floodplain on the eastern portion that kind of borders the property there. And we have reconvened our comprehensive land use planning steering committee for a couple of meetings here recently to look at this project and the mixed use town center area in general. And as part of that discussion and the staff developer meeting discussion on August the 4th, we were trying to figure out a way to address some of the more macro issues related to the mixed-use town center without really adversely affecting the timeline of this project, because some of those larger issues are going to take a lot longer to deal with. And so the more we looked at the project and the fact that it does have a conceptual master plan conditionally approved, we kind of backed our way into looking at the planned commercial development district as an option for this project. If you look at the objectives of that zoning district, It does check off a lot of the boxes that are there. It does have a mixture of uses. It has a lot of common open space and gathering spaces as part of the project. So I know that we have had some issues with the two planned commercial projects that have been approved and rezoned in the past. And we don't have planned developments much in our community, which I think as a planner is a good thing. But again, the more we looked at this project, the more we felt like, at least the folks that were involved in the discussion felt like that it would be a good candidate for a planned commercial development. So a couple of things that we wanted to get the Planning Commission's feedback on was whether you all, as a group, feel the same way. And then, one thing we asked the applicant to do based on the feedback that we provided at the staff developer meeting on the 4th was to actually start looking at the planned commercial development language in the event that the full Planning Commission feels like that's a good option, and just identify, provisions in there that you may want to have revisited for this project. So 2 questions that kind of need to get some feedback on. First, are you all okay with using the planned commercial development zoning district for this project? And then secondly, we'll go through some of the applicants' feedback that they provided the staff on some of the language in the current planned commercial development district. As you all know, the Planning Commission voted to get rid of the district several months ago. And I did talk with the town attorney about that. And we did not take that to the board. We felt like there were some grandfathering issues and things that could come up with existing projects that are under that zone. And honestly, if the commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, they don't like the zone or they don't think that a project would be appropriate for that zoning district, then they don't have to rezone the property. So it really didn't seem to us to be an issue in that regard. So with that being said, I will turn it over to any questions that you all may have. This is just to show you again, that's the project. This is a little bit hard to read. This is from the future land use map of the general project area. As I talked about last month, most of their project is in the mixed use town center land use overlay, which is the purple area. The brown area just outside that is medium density residential, which now would be limited to up to 8 units per acre. So that part of the future land use map would have to be amended for this project. And then the zoning, most of their project is zoned just regular commercial in the mixed use town center overlay. There is a sliver of planned commercial development that comes across Brookline into their project, part of their project. You can see that in the brown there. So if the PCD is deemed to be a good zoning district, then we would need to rezone their entire project probably to the planned commercial development zoning district. So again, that's kind of an overview, and I'll be going through the applicant's specific questions I guess they had with the PCD, but I guess the first thing I wanted to get from you all was your thoughts on using the PCD for this particular project.
Who wants to start?
I'll start in just saying that I was at that step. I'm sorry, Ron, did you want to go first?
No, go ahead, Louise.
Go ahead.
actually, both of us were at that. Mayor Williams and I were at this staff developer meeting where we went back and forth, and it was struggling to figure out how to amend this or amend that, and then at the end of it, we finally realized, this is a PCD, and we've kind of backed right into exactly what it is we've been looking for a PCD, and what did they say? 3 times a charm. So this kind of made a lot of sense for the setbacks that we were struggling with because of where they're putting parking and how they're trying to connect the square with the apartments with the commercial, which you need that proximity to establish that walkability. So that's kind of how we ended up in backing into this, just to give you guys some history. So I support it.
Yeah, this is John Green. Yeah, I second everything that Louise said. It's Mark say at the staff developer meeting that this is complicated. And it seemed like the vehicle of the PCD was the most efficient way to get this thing captured and defined as far as zoning goes. So I support it as well.
Okay, Mayor Williams, I support it mainly because it fits what we were looking for. Whenever we first went into talking about a town center, we had a tremendous amount of feedback, overwhelming amount of feedback from the citizens on what they wanted to see. And so we took that to heart. And of course, you look at what can be done as far as what a developer will bring you. I mean, that piece of property has a lot of potential for a lot of different things, but the thing about it is you have to look at what is brought to you. That could sit there empty for a long period of time if you tried to pigeonhole it into something that that was very, very specific. But in this case, it does check the boxes for the PCD. There's no residential neighborhoods around it, and because you've got the new Kroger facility and that whole structure down through there, this is between what commercial they're putting in and what commercial that is already there at the Kroger and everything up through there. You've got a very nice little neighborhood, walkable and biking neighborhood here. And one of the concerns that a lot of people will have with this is the traffic that is perceived. But with the new red lights that we'll be putting in, that where we can actually see if there is a backup, we can adjust the lights accordingly from the town hall, which is something we've not been able to do with the old stuff. But I think it'll be something where if we see an issue, we can address it, and wherever it's at, whether it be on Kingston Pike or Brookline or Campbell Station or really Concord Road. So the other good thing about this is there is a buffer area to the east before you actually get to Concord Road. And then you have a pretty good little buffer area between the apartment section and South Campbell Station. For that reasons, all those reasons, I propose that we amend the Brown area to PCD to make the complete unit there as stated be PCD.
This is Ed. I probably agree. If you look back at what we did with the original PCD there on the new Kroger area, there are elements of that never came to fruition. And so this one has a lot more of the elements that we were thinking in the day. And I think that all the elements that need to be taken care of in this kind of roll better into and under a PCD than any other option. Any other comments?
Noah?
I think that I've had a lot of reservations with PCD, and the staff knows, and the staff probably has struggled with it more than maybe the commissioners. Ideally, I'd like to get away from things that are subjective, but on a mixed use project, when you're trying to do some things and think outside the box, I think under the circumstance, PCD really does make the most sense here. It's probably a lot more work for staff to be able to interpret and try to determine compliance, but I do think it ends up, you do end up with a better end product. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns that we've kind of got to work through, and probably one of the biggest challenges that, at least what I heard from staff with the PCD that includes apartments, is they felt like it was just too much on too little, i.e. the total number of units here. Obviously, this property has some more space. They've got some floodplain to kind of spread out and help some of their density rights. And those are probably some things I saw in the developer's write-up about some concerns that they have that they'd like to see in the PCD. But I think under the circumstance, the very reasons why we thought PCD was good 10 or 15 years ago is probably why it's very appropriate in this scenario as well.
Thank you, Noah. Any other comments from any of the other commissioners? Mark, you want to move on to the second item that you had for discussion on the?
Yeah, I'll just, I had in the packet the applicant's review and their comments regarding the planned commercial development district. And the staff talked with the applicant yesterday to go through some of these things and just, be a little bit more clear from our perspective on the nature of what they're trying to get at. And I'll just get through these briefly. The low impact development requirement basically is that at least 25% of the development's total area shall be designed so that its runoff will be accommodated through a low impact development measure. And after talking with the applicant about that, they've got so much open space, lawn space area, that I would have trouble believing that they would have any issues meeting that requirement. So I don't think that's going to be something that they will run into as being an issue. So we'll just have to see when we get more detailed information, but I don't believe the lowering or getting rid of the 25% low impact development requirement would really be necessary for this project. The second thing they talk about would be looking at some of our setback requirements, which from my perspective, I think would need to be looked at. We also we'll need to look at parking lot setbacks, and basically the fact that a lot of the on-street angle parking is going to be probably within public rights of way. So we're going to have to create some provisions in the planned commercial development zoning district, perhaps where there's a mixed-use town center land use overlay, so it would be differentiated from other planned commercial development areas that would address the kind of street system that they're proposing here, because this is the kind of street system that we would want to see in a planned commercial development. It has some traditional streets, and then it has some, streets that would be, town center style streets. So that's something we're going to have to work with. The fact that they don't have any existing residential communities that abut the development, there is a small area of property that is zoned actually residential. You can see it in the yellow there in the corner, but that could be rezoned and it really isn't developed as residential. So I think some of the peripheral setbacks, I don't have a problem from the staff perspective of lowering that, given the context of this project. and the front setbacks. I think, again, we need to look at that in relation to the kind of street system that they're proposing here and give them that kind of flexibility. I don't think that's going to be an issue. There's not a transition requirement here because it doesn't abut residential or agricultural, or the residential it does abut, they'll be probably rezoning that. So that wouldn't be an issue. One of the things that we did want to talk with them about was their request for the height increase. In the planned commercial development zoning district, it allows for you to go 3 stories or 45 feet. What they're requesting is to go up to 4 stories, and they request 60 feet. We talked with them a little bit about that. He indicated that in the in the R6 open space residential, which is what the overlook is zoned on the north side of the interstate, we allow up 4-story buildings there, but up to 55 feet. So we wouldn't really have anything currently that would allow you to go to 60 feet. And we're a little bit hesitant to go above 55, even if you all, I mean, we still need to get your all's feedback on the 4-story idea first. But I think if they could hold it to 55. And then related to that, they're requesting that the clubhouse height be increased from 25 to 35 feet. And that may be actually a good thing, depending on the multifamily buildings that are nearby, to give it a more appropriate scale in relation to those buildings. But I think I'd like to get your all's feedback on the height, because we did have some initial, questions about that when it was presented to the staff. So how do you all feel about going from 3 to 4 stories for this area?
Mayor Williams, I think the 4 stories is fine. I think the clubhouse 35 feet is fine. Is there a reason why they need the extra 5 feet? Is there some sort of a iconic feature or something on the top of the that they're concerned with that's taking up that extra amount of room?
I think the applicant is here. They can speak to that. I think they just wanted to give themselves a little bit of a buffer on the height. My understanding is from them that they can live with the 55 feet.
Mark, I'd be happy to address that.
Okay. Identify yourself and the name of that.
Don Kendall, Development Management Group, Nashville, Tennessee, 4209 Gallatin Pike.
Thank you.
We after our conversation with staff yesterday, went back to the architect and had some more detailed conversations about heights and what could occur here. And I think that the architect has a strong desire, and as does the developer, to provide 10-foot ceilings on these units and provide something that's really a premium in the market. And even with those 10-foot ceilings, we can stay within the 55-foot limit. So we're good there. But the only concern is on these buildings, you're going to have an elevator shaft and a roof access that are going to poke up above that top roof line that would be at 55 feet and could extend as high as 59 feet, which is why it's important for us to have the 60. In conversations with staff, they indicated that they're going to count that from the roof line. So a parapet or a elevator shaft or a roof access may not be applicable to that 55-foot requirement. So if we could get some clarity on that, I think we're good with the 55-foot.
Yeah, this is John Green. I was hoping to hear that a part of the reason for the extra height was 10-foot ceilings. I think that adds a lot to our apartments, because we're not really excited in some cases about apartments, but when you have apartments with 10-foot ceilings, it's a little bit different kind of apartment complex. So I think that we ought to try to work our way with that 60-foot to give them room to put 10-foot ceilings in and room for the elevator height.
Mayor Williams, I don't have a problem with the units that's on top, as long as they're shielded, like what that we ask other people to do. In other words, if you have air conditioning units or elevator shafts or something to that effect, and it's shielded to where it's not ugly, you know.
We dealt with this exact issue when we created the BD-4 zone a number of years ago. And there's some language in there that allows for exactly what the developer is talking about for this elevator shaft. And so, matter of fact, the bank building that at Renaissance is under the BD-4, yeah. And we should be able to, and it has the exact same features that they're talking about. And it's basically a 4-story building with the shaft going above the roof line. So I think we can take that same language out of the BD-4 and probably resolve this issue.
Thanks, Noah. That's a good idea.
Any other comments?
And for the record, I do support that clubhouse going to 35 feet. I think the scale is going to be more appropriate for a 35-foot height when you're next to these 4-story buildings.
I agree.
Absolutely, I agree too. Any other comments? Mark,
yeah, no other comments on the height. Okay. The other things
citizens.
Well, let me go through the other comments that they had first. There's a couple more. The parking requirement, I don't think is going to be an issue. They had requested for the commercial 1 space per 200 square feet. That's probably what I would recommend anyway. That's our requirement for small shopping centers that are less than 50,000 square feet. Their ratio for multifamily portion is a little bit lower than our current requirement. They're requesting 1.6. Currently, it's 1.75. I'm not a big fan of over parking, certainly, as you all know. So I think that's some language that we could probably build some flexibility in as well. This may be the last multifamily that we would see probably in this zoning district. And then the density, I think, regardless of what the applicant needs in their project, we do need to establish a density cap for the planned commercial development district, and we'll need to do that as part of. And they're asking for up to 15 units per acre. I don't know how y'all feel about that. I guess it depends on the area that you're using to count toward meeting that density. If you take it kind of looking at the site plan from an aerial perspective here, I mean, it doesn't, because you got so much area to the east, it's floodplain. It doesn't look to me to be super dense, but that is, more than what we allow in the R6, which is 12 units per acre. They may be able to get to a 12 unit per acre density, depending on what they count. They could count the village square, as part of their open space, things like that are unique kind of gathering spaces for this development. But they are requesting, up to 15 units per acre. And probably the biggest issue that we still need to work through with the applicant and their engineering representatives is just dealing with the flood regulations and the town's current requirement, its freeboard requirement, which is its level of safety. It's basically how much more a community requires the first floor to be elevated above the established base flood elevation. The minimum requirement in the federal requirement is 1 foot. We've adopted a 4 foot above the base flood elevation. one of the reasons we did that was we saw some flooding issues, really with the Pinnacle Bank there at the corner, South Campbell Station in Brookline, several years ago, when it was a 3-foot freeboard, and we raised that to 4 feet. So that's something we're going to have to, have some further discussion with the technical folks that are involved in this project to try to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And we'll certainly need to get the state floodplain coordinator involved at some point as well to try to figure out, a path forward in that regard. So I guess getting back to the density, did anybody have comments, questions, concerns about the 15 units per acre?
Mayor Williams, Mark, we've got another PCD on the west side of town. What was approved for that particular property there?
What was the density?
Yes, sir.
It was over 15 actually. So it was about 18.
20, I'd say.
I think it was about 18. Yeah, that's how I remember.
When they divided out the land, that's what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
So 15 is less than what we've allowed in the past?
It's less than that. We don't have a density cap right now in the planned commercial district. 15 is what is referenced in the land use plan for the mixed use town center residential density.
Okay.
15.
Okay.
But that's really talking about, it was really intended to be in reference to a mixed use, vertical mixed use building.
Yeah.
I think that's what that was really targeted toward. But again, we need to establish a density cap. So 15 is what they're requesting.
Go ahead, John.
I have a comment. I think one of the things that I've seen over the several of the meetings that we've had is I think we're all okay with the apartment complex as it stands. And I think we've also come to the agreement that we don't want any more apartments on this existing property. So I don't want to see us get in a position with the 15 that allows us now another building somewhere on this property. So that's the only concern I'd have with the 15.
That was the point I was going to make. We've approved this plan, this master concept plan with this layout, and I would not like to see any more buildings added to it.
Yeah, I think they need to show on their plan in details about what they're counting toward their, how they're balancing out that dwelling unit per acre. What is the acreage they're counting? Defining that and, putting a border around that. And that's the project, that's where the 15 dwelling units per acre. Anything outside that, of course, it'd have to be rezoned to something, and that would be a separate process, but it needs to be clear that would be this project.
We're including all of that open space along Turkey Creek, right? That's all considered part of the project area, is it not?
Yeah, it would be the project. Yes, it would be the project that they have control over at this point, and that would include that area. Yes.
So really what I would like to see is the delineation, because I'm not is this all of this property, even the area that fronts Campbell Station Road, is that all, and what is this, the west side of Turkey Creek, is that all of their property? I mean, all of it, the project? Because they'll have to delineate that out for the PCD.
Yeah, they will. Yes, they will have to.
Mark, I'd be happy to address that.
Okay.
So if you look at the concept plan, we're showing 2 detention ponds in that kind of open area adjacent to the multifamily. And one of those ponds is relocating the Kroger detention pond, and one of those ponds is for our project. Those ponds have not been designed at this point, so we're not sure how much room we need for that. But there's a big space in the middle of those 2 ponds, that if we were successful in getting the ponds to fit in that area, we would have some area where we could provide another use or something that could add flavor to the development. We would not propose to add any more apartment buildings in that area. And that area, as it shows on the plan right now, is 5 acres. And so if you were to extract that 5 acres out of the total, you would be at 15 units per acre. If you were to include that area, you would be at about 12 units per acre.
So tell me, what are you thinking of using? You said that there's 5 acres there that you might want to do something else with. What does that mean?
We literally don't know at this point. It could mean that, we've heard all kinds of crazy ideas of a boutique hotel, athletic center, something that could be an amenity to the overall development that would be used by the residents and could be used by everybody. So we really don't have that fleshed out. We just like that flexibility.
I can jump in, Vice Mayor Pavlin. This is Bud Cullum. We don't have a problem. Well, first of all, the conceptual plan and the site plan has to be approved. So if we wanted to add more apartments, we'd be back before you and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen again. Also, I would think, or at least before the Planning Commission. So I think that limits that ability, and that's not our desire. There's still some minor tweaks depending on the final grades as to exactly where those buildings are positioned. But as far as the number of units, we're happy with where we are.
Okay, I think that's our main concern is we're bumping up against a number that's making us uncomfortable. So where we are, as I feel kind of comfortable. I like the idea of an amenity, but I also like the idea of open space. So as it is, that trail running along Turkey Creek is going to be a real nice asset, community asset. So in addition to the village square that we're offering. So I just wanted clarity on that for the same reasons that John mentioned. So that's all I had.
This is John Green again. Mark, given the comment that we just heard about the potential for that 5 acres in there, is there something we need, since we're going to be tweaking the PCD a little bit anyway, it looks like, is there something we need to tweak to make sure that that doesn't turn into something that we really, really don't want in this area? You don't really have to answer that right now, but I guess I ask you to give that some thought when we're tweaking, that we don't end up with something in this area that we really don't want.
One of the things that we've not really done a good job with the 2 previous planned developments is require a real specific set of specifications and, just really details of the project and how they're going to build it, how they're going to phase it, the staging and all that stuff that you really normally see in these planned development projects. That I've looked at that we haven't had many in the town. So, but what we had with the most recent one that I was involved with was not really a lot of specifics in the narrative. Not at all like what you would typically see this kind of project. So they really the way a planned project really should work is you shouldn't have a whole lot of ordinance parameters. You really, the project really becomes the ordinance in a way. So they're going to they got a lot of work to do on creating their ordinance really with the project. So that's going to really be something that we're going to have to work with them a lot on in the next few weeks and months to get through that, and just make sure that the planned commercial district language doesn't get in the way of the project. But the project really, with their details, their narratives, and their all their specification sheets and information is really going to be what's going to guide this zoning district. And that's something we didn't do with the original Kroger or with the Watt Road project. And we need to not do that in this case and have a lot more specifics. And that would kind of address what you're talking about. It doesn't mean that they couldn't come back and request an amendment in the future, but it does hold them to some real specific, standards and requirements that they would have to follow. They're getting some benefit for more density, higher buildings, flexibility and setbacks and things like that. But in exchange, like we talked about with the Watt Road project, they really need to give, and they're giving back the community a lot of benefit as well. And they are doing that with their concept plan. They have the village square and the town center section, and the walking trail and open space and things like that. And that was one of the reasons why we felt like the master plan seemed to be a good candidate for planned commercial, because they have a lot of the elements of what I think we were looking for when we created the planned commercial district in the first place. So just want to make that clear that there's a lot of work to do from this moment forward to try to get the details nailed down.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that 5 acres was either going to be open space of some kind, or it was going to be a facility of some sort that wasn't just an income revenue source for the developer, but more toward an amenity of some kind for the apartment complex or for the whole development. That it's actually a plus for the development.
Yeah.
Commissioner Green, this is Bud Cullum again. I think in a perfect world, what would happen is that it would be a combination potentially of both. I think at one time you probably remember seeing an initial concept plan where it showed in some of that area being an assisted living facility that we didn't have any concrete user for that. And since then, we've kind of decided that that's really not something that we would want. But because of the price of the land, if there's an area, if we can create what we want to do, and still have some area for additional use in the future, I guess in my mind, even if we haven't maxed out on our units per acre with the multifamily, we still have to get a concept plan. So obviously, if we came back and said we want to build more multifamily, we would be at the mercy of the planning commission, who could just say no. As I said, that's not our plan. But the idea would be to have not only our walking trail and our detention facilities, but more open space / park space. But again, in a perfect world, still have some room for more revenue creating land also. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, it does. And I didn't mean to imply that revenue is a problem. I understand how that works, but I would like it revenue that's also beneficial to the facility, that's also beneficial to the project.
Right.
And because of the PCD, I believe this commission has the final say on what could be added or taken away from this. We've got this concept plan approved, but it doesn't show anything in that area. So if we desire to add something to that area, we'll have to work collectively to decide if that's the right thing to add to the PCD by amendment. So it will all participate in that process if and when something comes up that would be attractive to add to that area.
And my comments are really to help you gauge how we are thinking about that space. You may have some great ideas that we haven't even thought about yet, but I'm hoping through this dialogue that you begin to understand kind of where we're coming from and help you to focus on what will work and what will not work.
To that end, I would add that if it's not open space, it needs to be something that's rather low impactive idea and concept. It can add to the development, but still not the overall plan and scheme and infrastructure.
Yeah, part of that's floodplain anyway, isn't it?
There is some floodplain that kind of intermingles in that area. And again, it could be that detention ponds end up taking up a majority of that space. So that's why we haven't tried to plan anything for that area, because we're just not far enough along to understand what's going to be available.
Yeah.
This Commissioner Dick, did you hear?
Betty?
Yes. I think we need to be careful not to overbuild and leave areas for these people living in the apartments to get out of that. So need to know what's going to happen here. Is there not a designated open space for this development or requirement?
Betty, I can't really hear you clearly, so I'm not understanding what you're asking.
I think her question was, is what is the requirement for the open space? And does that area, the 5 acres that would be in between those 2 ponds, make up the minimum requirements of open space for the development?
Yeah, there's an open space amenity for the apartments and the rest of the town.
I think that's going to be crucial.
There are open space requirements that are outlined in the PCD requirements. I believe it's 30% overall, and we didn't see any problem with meeting that requirement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mark?
I do have some comments that I do need to read into the record. Does anyone have any other comments from the Planning Commission?
Well, you settled in on the density, didn't you?
I think I got enough feedback on that.
Okay.
With the 15, right?
Yeah.
I know I'm late to this discussion, but can someone give me some idea about how this will impact like Farragut Primary? Has there been any studies to show that with this density?
What was your question, Michael?
Vice Mayor Palmer, you probably have already looked into this, but has anyone discussed how this is going to impact Farragut Primary?
The apartments tend not to provide much student yield. It breaks down to 12 students for K through 5, 7 students for middle school, and 7 students for high school.
Where did you get that data?
The Knox County Planning, every 5 years, they reanalyze the student yield for single family detached, single family attached, multifamily, market rate, multifamily, I think it's called, I don't know if it's called affordable housing or not, but for each sector in the in Knox County. And so we're considered the Southwest sector. So in the Southwest sector, that's there's a yield rate they get, and then they analyze it down to the K through 5, and it comes out to about 25 students total.
Because we seem to be at maximum capacity at Farragut Primary.
Yes, and they've approved a new school over in Carnes.
Okay.
We'll be building in the next 2 years. Should open in the 2021? So 22, August of 22. Susan, we have 276 students zoned for primary, well, that was last year, primary and intermediate across the highway that Susan Horn envisions being moved in this process, either to the new school or as a rezoning to Hardin Valley Elementary, which is where they belong because they're zoned for Hardin Valley Middle and Hardin Valley Academy. So that is our overcrowding problem right there.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Do that. And they're doing a feasibility study to add on to Farragut Intermediate. I'm not sure where that stands, but they've budgeted that in the Board of Education for this fiscal year to do a feasible study for what a feasibility study to add on to Farragut Intermediate.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
You're welcome.
And there will be a traffic impact study, obviously, for this project. There, you know, and then we need to look at the Brookline Street modification, you know, as an element of that, and all that's going to have to be looked at. Again, all that we've really looked at so far is just this conceptual master plan, and that's a good first step. But there's a lot of details and a lot of specifics that that will have to be worked out.
With this. Spoke with Principal Gina Bird at all? Has anyone spoken to Gina Bird?
Sorry, Michael.
I was just wondering if Ms. Horn had consulted, or anyone on the commission had consulted with Principal Bird, Gina Bird.
Well, and you remember this year with a lot of the students, I can't say a lot, 25% or so on virtual learning. It's got to make a big relief for her as far as building capacity. So understood.
Okay.
That this problem is getting resolved. These apartments won't be built in that, you know, I think the new school will be open by the time these start.
Okay. So you anticipate the school being completed prior to?
Oh, well, the school is supposed to be due August of 2022. It's supposed to open. This is not going to be your pressing area. You're only going to get a handful of students out of this. So.
Yeah, and I think the timeline for building new schools could be impacted by the overall revenue for the county right now with the pandemic effect. And
well, the school is funded. The building of that school is funded. Yes.
And so is the road.
It is funded, and so is the road to improve in front of Couch Mill, whatever it's called. Yes, all of it is funded.
Okay. Ready for citizen comments?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started on those. The first one comes from Susan Royster. I've now lived in Farragut over 30 years with relatives prior to me, going back to historic Concord, buried in Pleasant Forest Cemetery. So I guess you can say I have a long history with this community. Like many others, I've watched it grow from a quaint rural area with beautiful landscapes, fields, and farms to an ordinary community. I say this because the heart of our community off Kingston Pike has been lined with empty big box commercial buildings. At least, thank goodness, something is being developed at the intersection of Kingston Pike and Campbell Station. All these years, I've driven down either Concord or the new Campbell Station and enjoyed large fields and horse pastures. At the beginning, when the new white fencing was installed, these fields were maintained and looked nice. After the barn fire, they have virtually been ignored and become quite an eyesore. Many of us complained after the burnt barn was allowed to sit there for almost 2 years. I was told the town of Farragut wasn't forcing cleanup because they wanted to deal with the Bill family on the other property and didn't want to step on any toes there. We don't need or want any more new development, and especially apartments in the heart of our town. Also, many other buildings sit empty. Now Steinmart is going out of business, thus another empty spot. The town of Farragut has spent millions on all the new parks, that is McPhee, Watt Road, and as nice as they are located at the fringes of our town. Unless you make a point to drive those ways, you never see them. Wouldn't it be nice for the town to purchase this beautiful property, keep the majority open, and maintain pastures, rebuild a nice looking barn structure, and use that as a community center that could be rented for special events, outdoor amphitheater, etc. This would make a beautiful statement in the heart of our community that would be seen by everyone on a daily basis. I'm sure this is pretty much a done deal, and a long-time resident's opinion is not needed or appreciated. but I just felt I was doing my community a disservice if I didn't speak up. Thank you. If you are still reading my email, Susan Royster, 715 McGuffey Drive. The next one is Ben Stolt at 724 Foxdale Lane. What makes Farragut awesome is its sense of community. Tear it down and put horses there, but please don't add high density housing to Farragut. Keep it a great place to live. The next comment is from Michelle Chandler at 12944 Water Grove Drive, which actually is not in the town. As a long-term resident of Farragut, I strongly oppose the proposal of apartments on the property next to Kroger. Our school are overcrowded. Teachers are quitting due to this. We do not have the infrastructure in place for additional residential development, let alone housing such as this. The fact that you're making these type of decisions during a time when the public cannot be present is concerning. The next comment is from Elizabeth Ham, and she's at 11428 Old Colony Parkway. I just wanted to let the Municipal Planning Committee know that I'm a Village Green resident and I'm in favor of the proposed apartment complex at the location of the former Kroger. Thanks. Next comment is from Rick Shaft at 205 Battery Hill Circle. It's my understanding that an apartment complex and retail outlets will be constructed on the old Kroger property. I have a real concern with adding yet additional traffic in this zone at select times during the day, especially in the morning when school's starting, and then in the afternoon when everyone is trying to get home. The traffic flow can be very difficult. What is your plan to deal with the infrastructure? Thank you. Next comment is Kristen McGuire. She's at 617 Blackburn Drive. I am writing in response to the proposal to build apartments where the old Kroger building is currently standing. While that shopping center has been allowed to become an eyesore and desperately needs to be used in a way to benefit our town, I do not believe building apartments is the answer. Traffic coming into Farragut from the level road is already terrible each afternoon. Building apartment homes at this proposed site will only increase the traffic flow exponentially. Farragut is already putting so much time and money into creating a downtown feel at the corner of Kingston Pike and Campbell Station. Why not create an area much like the new Kroger shopping center? The flow of small businesses from the Crepe restaurant around to Papa Murphy's is a great area to stroll and shop in. Use the old Kroger area to continue that feel, including spaces for bistros, salons, locally owned boutiques, as well as some office space for other local business. I'm absolutely against building apartment buildings in the town of Farragut. Next one is from Suzanne Cielo at 614 East Foxden Drive. I'm very opposed to building apartments at Old Kroger. Congestion in the area is terrible as it is, and we certainly don't need another stoplight. That with building the Farragut building on the corner of Kingston Pike and Campbell Station would be insane. Farragut has become too crowded and will no longer be a place that people want to move because of crowding. I love that younger families are moving in and like that they are fighting to find a home here. Let's keep it like that. Next one is from Angel, let's see, Angel Iacasio, 12628 Comblaine Drive. Say no to 300 apartments in the old Kroger site. Next one is from Rebecca Mehelik, I guess. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. 406 Gwenhurst Road. I'm writing to you to request that you seriously reconsider and not allow any apartment complexes to be built inside the city limits of the town of Farragut. There are too many reasons to put on the paper why so many people in Farragut are opposed to this. And that if I did write it all, you would probably not take the time to read such a lengthy letter. Please listen to the citizens that you're representing and do not allow apartment complexes to come into the town of Farragut. Next one is Terry Savage from 417 Cutlass Road. Please do not allow apartments to be built at the old Kroger site. The traffic on Concord Road is already out of control. For those of us who live in Concord Hills and other neighborhoods that access Concord Road, leaving or returning home in the afternoon is near impossible. That site should be used to help with the overcrowding in the Farragut schools. And let's see, we got a comment from Judy Overholt Wheeler from 11530 Woodcliff Drive. I do not want to see Farragut become any more congested than it already is. Be content with the mess we have. Let some green space into the area. Is it greed? Bigger is not always better. No apartments is my choice. And then the last comment is from Mike Mitchell. He is 716 Brixworth Boulevard. And 280 apartments at the old Kroger location will forever change Farragut in many negative ways. There is no way to accommodate the added traffic without changing the character of this area. Now, during school hours, there is traffic gridlock. Why add 280 apartments to that existing traffic gridlock? The apartment occupants cannot entirely support this new Farragut Town Center, and the hassle of traffic going there will keep other people away. This is a dated plan that ignores current reality. People will not shop at a place that is difficult to get into and out of. This is a blockbuster videotape idea in the time of Netflix movie streaming. Drive through the Turkey Creek Shopping Center. There are many vacant buildings there now. Some of that is a retail downturn. Some of it is caused by COVID-19. The renovated Old Ingalls Shopping Center is waiting for businesses, but no one has come yet. And that is a convenient place to get in and out of. That should set off some alarm bells. When the town of Farragut created the town center concept many years ago, there was no COVID-19, and Amazon was not the local business destroyer as it is today. We do not know what future bars and restaurants have in a post-COVID-19 world. They may not have a future. The Planning Commission should reject this plan. It is too risky. It is the wrong location. It could do too much harm to the town and the property value of Farragut residents. Farragut should stay true to its roots as a bedroom community. People moved here to get away from an urban environment. Trying to be all things to all people is a sure way to be nothing to anyone. This concept plan really does not match the vision of a town center as passed by the town of Farragut years ago. That plan had mixed-use businesses on the lower floor and condos and apartments on the upper floors. This is a bunch of apartments and two strip malls masquerading as a town center. This does not elevate Farragut. It is just a Me Too copycat sellout for apartments in a place they are not needed or wanted. The town of Farragut has already approved too many apartments in the past few years. We have no need for apartments, especially at this location. This proposed Farragut Town Center has many parallels to the Downtown West Shopping Center near West Town Mall. In the early 70s, many executive apartments were built south of Downtown West Shopping Center and south of Gleason Road, even though there was a very successful West Town Mall, developers took the gamble and built out Downtown West. The concern is that Farragut's town center would become what happened to Downtown West and the apartments south of Gleason Road. Downtown West has changed many times and is historically a business failure. Blueprint of what not to do. Many of the apartments south of Gleason Road became Section 8 low-income housing. That was thought to be impossible when those apartments were built in the 70s. It can happen anywhere, even in Farragut. Flash forward to the present. Why would anyone shop at the proposed Farragut Town Center when they can shop at the Turkey Creek Shopping Center or purchase their items from Amazon, Target Direct, or Walmart Direct? Back when Downtown West Shopping Center was built in the 70s, there was no COVID-19 and no Amazon. It still failed because it wasn't a good idea. This Farragut Town Center is a gamble the town of Farragut should not approve. There are many better options for this land, options that are safer and match what the people of Farragut say they want. The old Kroger's could be used as a learning annex to Farragut High School and for storage for Knox County schools. That would be very helpful in increasing social distancing in our schools with COVID-19. Should this virus continue into 2021. One of the biggest requests in the town of Farragut is for an aquatic center, which would be a great fit for this empty farmland. There could be tennis courts for Farragut High School. It could also be a good location for a new subdivision, which would be much better than the proposed town center in terms of bringing money to the town. The subdivision is a safer bet and is better for the residents. Why invite risk when there are better options? And that's all I have on this particular item, citizen comments.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for hanging in there and reading that.
You're welcome.
Ready for item 10?
Ready.
Let's go. Item number 10, discussion of amendment to the Farragut Municipal Code Appendix Zoning Chapter. Now for by homeowners as a town Farragut applicant.
Okay, somebody needs to mute themselves, I believe there. But this originally actually started out with an initial objective of creating some provisions in our special event section of the zoning ordinance that would allow homeowners associations to have food trucks as an option. Currently, food trucks are only an option in a non-residential setting. And, you know, as we've had the COVID pandemic, people are not eating out as much. They're staying more at home in their subdivisions. So what we were trying to do was create an opportunity to allow for food trucks to come to residential areas through an approved process that would have certain parameters that they would need to follow. I originally took that idea and that was given to me to look into, and really, given the fact that we have amended our sign ordinance, it's going for second reading next week. It was a good time to actually update that aspect of the special event section in our zoning ordinance as well, and to tie it to the new language of our sign ordinance. So really, what started out as a simple amendment became essentially a rewrite of the section. I apologize for that, but I think it really needed to be rewritten. Not sure that what I have here is the best way to do it. This is just a workshop discussion. But you know, there's quite a few things that I took out, some things that I clarified. Basically, put churches and schools in the same category as other non-residential activities. I didn't see any reason to separate those since most of the other parameters were the same. And now the signage is essentially the same. So there wasn't really a reason to do that. In the residential, allowing for the food trucks as an option, and then tying the signage to the signage that would apply to residential areas. And basically, that's the majority of the changes. Is just adding clarifications, taking out old signage references, updating it to our new sign ordinance. If y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those. I just needed to get your all's feedback and input so that I can move forward with whatever you want to do with this in an ordinance. So I'll turn it over to any questions that you all may have.
Mark, I have a question. Let me get to the number 3, permitting process.
Yeah.
A, applicant's name, street address, telephone number, fax number, and email address. Where an event is sponsored or hosted by a homeowner association include, I'm sorry, that's not what I was trying to figure out. I just lost my place. Crud.
Are you in the residential section? Are you in the residential?
There was something not clear, and now like a verb was missing. Okay.
Can I make?
I'm sorry, 3F. If a homeowner association and having tents, food truck, or any other outdoor activities, including a site plan, showing locations for such activities. All following information. It just kind of doesn't flow right, I guess, as my struggle. All special event permit shall include the following information. It doesn't read right.
Yeah, you're right. There needs to be, at a minimum, a comma after association. Really, and that's current
What was
language.
the gist of that? What were you trying to
that whole statement needs to be, most of that's current language, and it just needs to be rewritten.
Okay.
In all honesty. I really don't like the way it's worded there. I did rewrite A up there where an event is sponsored or hosted by a homeowners association. That's probably what I just need to make that more clear with F.
Okay.
That is awkward language in looking at it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that should be pretty easy. Say something like where an event is sponsored or hosted by a homeowners association, provide information regarding tents, food trucks, and any other outdoor activities through the site plan or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with
Mark, I had a question about that same section in permitting, section B, where we discussed at the staff developer meeting about the capping the number of permitted requests. And I think we said that it would be 5 for.
Yeah, we talked about 5. Yeah, at the staff developer meeting, but again, that's open for discussion. That was just a number that was thrown out there because there were some subdivisions that we talked about. They have like swim clubs and things that may need more than the 4 events.
Right. Yeah, and I was considering that as well, because if really in essence, and I'm not saying that in the spirit of this ordinance, an HOA would go to this length, but if they needed more than 5, what would prevent an individual from making an application that lives within that subdivision? Because I think they're capped at 2 permits.
Yeah, individual homeowners and that's the current limit. So we just kept that language at 2, but that's open for discussion. I'm not sold on any of those numbers, frankly.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
But only the homeowners association can have a food truck. Everyone can have a special event, but only homeowners associations can have a food truck. So that's why we limit it to 5. That's certainly something. I think that that number can change. I think we need to figure out how the homeowners associations are using it.
Right.
And then go from there.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that, Louise.
Any other comments?
Done.
One thing, that language actually does, it provides for the special event permits, really. It's not just the food trucks are only an option where you have a homeowners association. But Scott was right that the overall permits allowed are capped at 2 for a homeowner. And then the homeowners association is proposed as 5. But only the association could have a food truck component as part of that approved event.
I was unclear on that part of it, Mark. Thank you.
Now, whether we need to increase that number, that's up to you all. I'm not like, again, I'm not sold on in all honesty, a resident that's doing a special event, I mean, I don't even know, it's almost impossible to enforce. A lot of these things are probably happen every weekend and we don't even know about it.
Betty, did you have a comment? I thought I heard you.
I'm trying. Can anybody hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Our homeowners association asking for this. Do they want food trucks? I must be.
Yes, I believe that's correct. The homeowners associations do want to be able to have food trucks.
Yes, Commissioner Dick, I have quite a few neighborhoods that have reached out to me and said they don't want to be in violation of town ordinances, but they do. They have had in past, a monthly during the summer. They have like Brixworth they've had one on a monthly basis in the summertime, and it is a community gathering situation where the community comes down and they can all buy something from the food truck and hang out together. And so I thought if this is happening, we may as well give them an avenue so that they don't feel like they're sneaking around if it's happening anyway. And we're allowing businesses to do it. And of course, we have the summer concert series, and they always bring in food trucks for that. So it's happening. I have made it very clear to everyone how the town of Farragut makes its money, and the reason why we've instituted, we went down this road, and that people were asking about the food trucks in Admiral's Corner, which they are a point of sale. So it's not food truck sales. That's going to be the point of sale. So we'll get that revenue. So I've made that very clear through social media that, yes, we should kind of look at this and soften this a little bit, but let's not go overboard. So that was where that came from.
Is it going to be, are these food trucks going to be put out the schedule which homeowners association they're going to do?
I think I heard you say they're going to put out a schedule. I really don't want to know about it. And I don't want it really heavily advertised. I'm thinking this is great for the community, for that subdivision to have a reason to get together and gather together. But I'm not sure I want to see it highlighted, because really our brick and mortar businesses continue to suffer and they need our help.
Right, that's 2 things I'm concerned about, brick and mortar. And well, everybody knows it's coming. It opens the neighborhood up for someone to come in and chase the neighbor, an unwanted person. I'm getting an echo. I don't know what's wrong with this piece of equipment I have.
We can't hear your echo, but I am having a hard time hearing you. You keep coming in and out, and I can't hear all of what you're saying.
Well, I think if there is a schedule put out, others are going to come into a neighborhood, and I don't think that's a good idea.
I agree. I don't want to see that. I would hope that things stay very it stays personal to and I would think the neighborhoods would want that. They don't want people. They're doing it to get together with their own residents so that they can meet their new neighbors and they can have a place where they can gather. It's not intended to be something that's a community-wide event. it's intended to be something that's an HOA sponsored event for the residents in that neighborhood.
Betty, this is Mayor Williams. I'm like Louise. I've had quite a few requests, and we have basically 4 swim teams in Farragut. You have Fox Den and Sugarwood and Concord Hills and Village Green, and they typically have 3 home meets a year at each pool. And then a lot of the neighborhoods will have some sort of a fall festival, like, around Halloween. They try to pick a weekend that there's not a UT football game. And then they may even have something that's a kickoff for the year when school's out. They may have an ice cream social or something to that effect, where they would have a slushy truck or whatever. So I think that's kind of how we come up with 5, was basically based on the potential of swim meets where they would want food from for all the people there. You have a Concord Hills or Village Green or Sugarwood. I've seen some of the swim meets where we've parked 900 cars at Sugarwood, and that's a lot of hungry people. So at that kind of a swim meet, then a food truck makes sense. And then in the fall festivals that they have, like around Halloween time and that type of thing, you see potlucks, but a lot of people would really just rather have something like a food truck. So that's what the feedback that I've got from the actual neighborhoods on the south side.
I know my kids were on the team. After me, they went to Little Joe's or one of the local brick and mortar places. Do they do that for? We don't know.
I don't think we could understand you, Betty.
Okay. When my children were on swim team, after the meet, they went to Little Joe's or one of the other food places here in Farragut.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yes, they do that. Ours goes to Sonic because it's outside, but during the meet they do serve food, and some of them, instead of just trying to bring food in from like a pizza, we used to sell pizzas, but you have to have someone to coordinate that, and that became a headache. So they started inviting food trucks to make it easier for the person who had to coordinate that. So that's where that kind of came from.
But I did not mean that people bring food in. They would actually leave the meet and go to Little Joe's. Little Joe's was a popular place to go after the meet.
Yeah.
So people weren't bringing in food anyway. I know, yeah. I'm not for food trucks, basically. How will it affect the brick and mortar places? Well,
Betty, I share your concerns, and I've made it very clear to people that are asking. Village Green was bringing in food trucks during the COVID-19 when we were in the shutdown, and I let them know that our brick and mortars need our support, and they still need our support, and I'm begging people to understand that the brick and mortars, especially our mom and pops, that's what makes a community special. That's what makes a community unique, and brings your flavor and your soul to the community. And if those disappear, we're left with Chili's and with the national brands, which are fine, but they're not the heart and soul of your community. So I am wholeheartedly in agreement with what you're saying. I don't think it's a lot of neighborhoods that are doing it, but I did want to give them, I did want to be fair and give them an avenue to, so that they weren't sneaking around and doing something they thought was wrong. But I didn't want it to go overboard and be something that took the place of people going out. We did ask Village Green, instead of asking these food trucks to come in, coordinate with some of your restaurants. And so they really did go out and try to do that during this time. But it is happening, whether we want to approve it or not. I'd like to keep it on a limited basis and go from there. But I understand your concerns and I share them.
Okay.
I think picking the number of 5, that seems reasonable, and see how that works. And go from there. I think we have to get our toe in the water with this. I think it's going to be there. The demand's going to be there. So we need to deal with it as best we can and respect both business communities, both as homeowners and their need, and how that can facilitate, less traffic running in and out for food and what have you. For instance, I know Concord Hills is kind of limited on its roadway to get to the pool and the tennis area. And again, I think we need to probably look at being able to also be protective of our brick and mortar businesses too. Certainly encourage the use of those, but this is going to happen. The wave is there, and we need to participate in a controlled way. So let's try 5 and see how that works out.
Thank you.
Did anyone else have any comments about the proposed changes or anything you wanted to add to that, or questions? Do they make sense?
I'm going to go ahead and make an motion to approve.
It's a discussion.
It's just a workshop tonight. Yeah, this is just workshop.
It's ready for the meeting next month.
Yeah, I'll take that one question that Louise had on the language clarification on 3F. I can address that pretty easily.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
Anybody else have anything on that for now?
None.
Okay. Going to item number 11. Discussion of an amendment to the Farragut Municipal Code Appendix A zoning, Chapter 4, Section 24, and opening special events permit to provide for different sign-related provisions. Town of Farragut, Appin. Mark?
Yeah, this is similar to the last item. Since we have changed our sign ordinance, I wanted to look at this section of our zoning ordinance that talks about grand opening special events and update that as well. The grand opening option was originally established back in 2013, and at that time there was actually a committee that was formed to come up with this process, and they basically recommended to create a grand opening sign that would be owned by the town. This is what it looks like. And basically the way it's currently worded, new commercial entities would have the ability to essentially rent the sign from the town. They just need to put a $300 deposit down. We give them the sign, they can use it for 20 days, and as long as they bring it back and it's in good condition, then we give them back their deposit. Some of the, I guess, issues that we've had with this process and sign, the deposit process is a little bit, it's not really that business friendly, and it's a little bit of work on the staff's part, because we actually do have to deposit those deposits. We can't just hold on to them. So it creates a little bit of work for the admin folks to deal with that, and our staff in community development. The sign itself is very large. It's a 4x8. People are most often surprised when they come to pick it up and realize that they didn't have a big enough vehicle, that they need to borrow somebody's pickup truck or huge SUV to get the thing in there. And it's not, I guess it's all subjective, but it's the appearance of the sign has been questioned. It's very large. It can get blown over because it's so large. And I guess the thought was we knew we needed to revisit this section of the zoning ordinance because of the changes we made to the sign ordinance. But while we're at it, let's revisit the whole section, clarify what the intent and really the practice has been in using these signs. We've allowed non-commercial entities to use these, even though technically it's really not allowed currently. You know, like a dentist office is wanting to open. You know, it's a new business in the town, so we didn't see it as an issue. So really just opening it up to allow for office and service type entities to also have the opportunity to have a grand opening sign. And then really just to try to figure out a way to streamline the process, make the signs look better. And my proposal was just to basically allow the entity to create their own sign. It would be their sign. They could replace vinyl on it for other special events that they may want to do in the future, but don't charge them for their 40 total days of temporary parcel signs that they can have in the new sign ordinance. Basically, they get this sign as an extra sign. It can be out for 20 days, just like it is currently. They don't have to pay a fee for it. It's exempt. They don't have to worry about the deposit process and bringing a sign back or worrying about, it falling over because it's so large. And they have a sign that they've bought and can reuse in the future for events. So it just seemed like that would be a process that would make more sense. The Farragut Business Alliance has offered, through an email to, if they could have some involvement in this as well, maybe to serve as kind of help these new entities that are coming into the town to set up business or whatever the business is through this grand opening sign provision. I don't think that, in my opinion, that we ought to have our own signs or the Farragut Business Alliance ought to have their own signs. I think those really ought to be made and owned by the entity, and then they, again, like I said, they can take those signs and maybe change the vinyl on part of it in the future and reuse it for other events, and it would be consistent in size and general appearance to other special event signs that they would have during the remainder of the year or have the opportunity to have. So that's kind of a summary of what this is about. It's pretty much a complete rewrite of this section of the zoning ordinance as well. I took out a lot of stuff and added some clarifications. And I'll be happy to try to answer any questions you all may have, or comments that you have on this.
Mark, I have a comment, Mayor.
Okay.
I talked with Steve Krampasky, the Farragut Business Alliance, and he offered, like you said, to be the grand opening person as far as doing a sign that would comply with our sign ordinance and size wise and all, and take care of it to where most of your new businesses have got a lot going on, as far as getting the doors open and getting people in there, getting staff in there and product in there, whatever it is they're doing. And he would gladly be the greeter to greet the new businesses and try to have a sign that suited their business and comply with what we want to do with the 20 days and all that. I think that's a good thing, because it may be that the new business may not even be thinking about that, or really they probably don't even understand what our sign ordinance is even about. And this would be a good way for him to kind of give them the lay of the land and tell them what we expect sign wise in the future, and And then of course, welcome them to town but anyway, I think that's a good idea on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good idea. Figuring out how the logistics of it, and we'd have to work that out a little bit and make sure that he gets, notified of these new entities and knows about them so he can work with them. And again, I would still strongly recommend that the entities make their own signs. Now, he can guide them, and I think that's a useful interaction because the parameters he's going to be providing them for the grand opening sign are going to be the same parameters for their other special event and shop Farragut signs. So they'll know all those on the front end. It's simplified. And then they'll kind of get an introduction to like you said, the other sign ordinance provisions that they may not know about, or other things that they might want to take advantage of in the town that the town offers that they maybe weren't aware of. So yeah, I think having the FBA involved in this process, I'm all in favor of that. I think it's just, but I wouldn't really want them to have their own signs that they distribute out to entities like we've been doing with this sign. I think that's been a kind of a failure, really.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Mark, can I add a little bit? Because he was suggesting that he would have a base, not this sign. Obviously,
Yes,
he would have not this big sign, though.
Right. I know, but I don't think that's a good idea. But yeah, it's whatever y'all want.
Let me give you some of my perspective, and then we'll go from there. As a person who has opened up a business, it is very overwhelming. During the time that you're trying to get your CO, all you want is your CO. And you're jumping through every hoop you can to make sure you get your CO as quickly as possible, because you need to get your doors open, because you need to start making money. And I would, if I had known, and this wasn't approved, I remember this was one of the first things I was involved with when I started getting involved with the town. I would not have, if someone walked in and said, hey, you can make a sign and it could do this and it could do, I'd like them, you know what? I don't have no more brain space to be handling buying. I wouldn't know where to go. I wouldn't know what to do. I wouldn't know I would end up wasting a lot of money. Certainly if someone's more organized and can create their own sign, that'd be wonderful. If Steve happens to have a very basic sign that says grand opening that fits these narratives, he could say, hey, I've got this, we can do this with it, then we'll put it out. And when you start breathing a little bit in the next 3 weeks or so, let's sit down and get a plan together where you're using these signs as part of your marketing program, because that's really what it's intended to be. And I've told people that you really need to include this in your marketing plan. But when you're opening those doors, you're like drinking from a fire hose. And if someone came in and said, hey, I have this sign, it says grand opening, you want to put it out there? And I would be all over that. If you're a new business owner and you have no idea what you're doing. So I would like to see that there's flexibility there, that there's instruction for them, obviously, that they should really ideally have their own sign that they could reuse. But if they're just completely overwhelmed, if we have the ability to kind of come in there and save the day, I think that's an important thing to have as a backup plan. But that's my 2 cents.
I think we need to have both alternatives, accommodate both.
We could do both. Yeah, sure.
Because
I think that's fine.
Pulling their hair out.
Have it as an option.
People that want their own sign.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you could have it as an option if somebody was just, like Louis said, was overwhelmed and they didn't want to fool with it or know how to make a sign or who to talk to, then that would simplify that process for them. So yeah, we could provide for that as an option. Well, again, the logistics is going to be, what we just need to figure out. He'll need to have some kind of process where it would ensure that the sign's brought back and it's in a good condition and that kind of thing, similar to the process we've been doing with the grand opening sign. Maybe not quite as, elaborate as that, because those are pretty expensive signs because of their size. So that's why we had required the deposit that we do. And then the people just didn't really know what to do with the grand opening sign when they got it. I mean, yeah, we told them that you could have vinyl made and adhere it to that white portion of the top of the sign. That's what that's for. It's about 18 inches of available space. Some people did it and some people didn't. Some people would tape stuff on there, and it's just, the whole thing really just didn't work out. I think we had good intentions, but it just didn't work out the way that we wanted it to. That's why I think in most cases it would be ideal for the business to actually have their own sign, that they make it or have it made. Maybe Steve can help in that process, or Steve in the town can, work with different vendors to try to facilitate that process and help them out with, with that aspect of them opening. It's just one less thing they have to work on, but they are still owning the sign. It's not Steve that has to deal with it and administer that. He's helping them with the process of getting through that, so that it's much easier for them to do that.
This is John Green. I understand what you're saying, Louise, but I just don't think the town of Farragut needs to be in the sign business. We're in the promoting businesses, but we really shouldn't be supplying signs. I don't think. I just think that's not our role. And if we have some information, as Mark just said, to guide them to businesses around town that provide signage and stuff to help them get from their question and get a sign of their own, then that's fine. But I really don't think we ought to be in the.
It's not the town. But John, it's not the town that would be doing it. It's the FBA. This would be Steve's. Steve would have a basic alternative sign that he would keep in storage. This is not the town is not involved in this. This would be Steve helping them out, and that actually is where it needs to be, because that's what the FBA is there for, is to help them understand what the opportunities are now that they are open, between the FBA and the Chamber of Commerce, what their opportunities are, to the support that's there. So yeah, this is not a town stuff. It's
okay. I guess I missed that.
Yeah. FBA. Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't understand really what the FBA is. That may be something that, like I said, I know the questions that a lot of people have about what is the FBA. Well, once they meet Steve and he helps them on projects, as far as the opening and kind of guides them in different directions, then they understand. So that's kind of his forte. That's what he's out there doing. Once he finds out from us that there is a new business that's opening up and has rented this particular space and or building this particular building or whatever.
It's just going to require some coordination, and we do this with him on the Shop Farragut sites during the holiday season, but because they're still going to be capped at 20 days, so he's going to have some patrolling to do on these things to ensure that what happens in the field meets the sign in this case the sign ordinance parameters. I mean, obviously the signs, if he has the sign, it's going to meet the physical requirements. But, we're going to have to make sure that there's good interaction between us and FBA as to who has obtained grand opening sign permits. He would have to issue those, I guess. And we had to figure that out. And then the time frame when the sign goes up and when it needs to come down, and making sure that it gets taken down. Because we have had that happen with a lot of grand opening signs where they are not removed within 20 days, and we actually have to kind of force the issue. We don't like doing that, but we have to try to treat everybody the same. So, make sure that they hold to the 20 calendar days that they can have.
Well, that's one of the joys of Steve taking it over, because then he can go pick up his sign and they can't do
Yeah.
anything anyway.
Well, he'd have to also administer the ones that aren't his sign.
Yeah,
He'll be administering this
yeah,
aspect of the ordinance.
yeah.
So he'll have to have a process in place, for that, which is not that difficult, but especially with just grand opening signs, because there aren't that many of those.
Any other comments?
None.
Okay. Think we're ready to put this on next month's agenda?
Well, I'll try to figure out how we want to deal with that. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to item number 12, approval of utilities. Mark, any utilities?
I do not have any utilities.
Okay, then we'll move to item 13, citizens forum. Mark?
I do have some citizen forum comments. Again, these are items that are not on the agenda. The first one is from Lane Blanchard, 12813 Pecos Road. Hello and thank you in advance for taking the time to hear my concerns. My family and I recently moved to Tennessee. We feel very fortunate to have found a house with such kind and helpful neighbors in the Saddle Ridge subdivision. The town of Farragut in general seems like an especially supportive place to raise a family. We are thankful. With that in mind, the town's lack of support for the citizens on Pecos Road and neighboring roads feels very out of place. The Ivy Farms connection might not seem like a big deal to those unaffected, but for the families who live here, it is a very big deal. I asked the planning committee, please address a few items. One, what exactly is the road construction timeline? When will Union Road be updated and completed? I understand my voice may not stop this Ivy Road connection. However, why has Union Road not been updated? Why is it not being addressed before Pecos Road? Union Road being updated will be a great improvement for all. Without Union Road being completed before Pecos, construction traffic and additional vehicular traffic will most certainly and unnecessarily pass through Pecos. Please address Union Road. Second issue, Pecos has flooded 3 times recently since the road construction. This is very concerning. Thankfully, the water didn't hop the curb, but it was close. My family's house is low, and water most certainly would have gone in the garage if the water got much higher. I am quite new to the area, as I said before, but my neighbors have told me that the water has never been that high before, even last year when Knoxville had a 100-year flood. Clearly, the grading done to the ground for the Ivy Farms development has left nowhere for the water to go, and now our streets get the brunt of it. Goodall Homes needs to be kept accountable for proper water drainage. Third, please install a safety gate or raised crosswalk to slow traffic between Pecos and Ivy Farms. This does not seem like an unreasonable request in the slightest. If the town could please install a safety gate or a raised crosswalk to slow traffic, my family would greatly appreciate it. Just the other day, before the road has even been connected, a car came speeding down Pecos and slammed on his brakes thinking the road was connected. Clearly, cars are going to drive fast through the area, and we need safety measures to ensure this doesn't happen. I truly appreciate your time. I understand this is a difficult situation and not every interest can be addressed, but I do appreciate your consideration. Second comment is from Ashley Kendall, 12804 Pecos Road. My name is Ashley Kendall, and I live at 12804 Pecos Road. I would like to again express my dismay over the connection between the new Ivy Farms development of Pecos Road and Saddle Ridge. There is no doubt that this connection will create an increase of traffic on the road I live on. While the amount of increased traffic may be disputed, the bottom line is that there will be additional cars using this route on a daily basis. These additional cars will be funneled right past the hub of our neighborhood where the pool, playground, tennis courts, and clubhouse are. As you can imagine, the presence of pedestrians, children, and families is constant in this area. Even more concerning is the fact that there are no sidewalks in this part of the neighborhood. Children congregate in the streets to play. I am highly concerned about the safety of my children as well as many other children that live on and visit Pecos Road in the lower part of our neighborhood. Town's apparent lack of interest in this concern and the focus on connectivity, even at the expense of safety, is troublesome. Please reconsider opening up Pecos Road for regular vehicular traffic. The next comment is from Tim Sayers. My name is Tim Sayers. I live at 12812 Pecos Road, Knoxville 37934, which is located in the Saddle Ridge subdivision. These comments reflect the position of myself and my wife Joyce. I have several topics that I would like to address. Let's see here. My first topic is one that I've been coming before the MPC about for multiple years, which is the new Ivy Farms development. When I first started coming before the MPC, I was told by the MPC it was too early in the project to talk about this issue. I replied to the MPC that I wanted to be there early because my experience has shown me that often issues like this take a life of their own. As time has passed, my comment has proven to be true, even more so than I ever imagined. I, along with many residents of Saddle Ridge subdivision, are displeased with recent activities related to the development, which include, but are not limited to, some of these are currently in process. One, lack of erosion control in some areas of the development, which illegally allowed stormwater and soil to run off Ivy Farms development into the storm drains of Saddle Ridge subdivision. This happened on multiple occasions. Inadequate erosion control in some areas of the development that was installed with erosion control have been missing, which illegally allowed stormwater and soil to run off Ivy Farms development into the storm drains in Saddle Ridge subdivision. This happened on multiple occasions. It is my understanding that one violation has been issued for this. Illegal and unsafe use of a town of Farragut hydrant. It is my understanding that one violation has been issued for this. Early morning, 6 a.m. operation of heavy equipment. The developer contractor has been contacted about this. Late evening, 8:15 p.m. operation of heavy equipment. This happened after the developer contractor was contacted about the early morning work. Unauthorized use of Union Road by construction traffic. Due to Union Road not being up to code, this is not only unsafe, it is also contributing to the deterioration of the road. The developer and or contractor was contacted about this, but the authorized use continues after being contacted. My next topic is regarding the International Fire Code. Despite communications with various Town of Farragut representatives, I continue to believe that the Pecos Road connection does not meet the requirements laid out in the fire code regarding the distance of a second access road from the main entrance road. I am continuing to pursue this issue. My final topic is that I'm requesting the Town of Farragut looks at providing a way for citizens who do not have cable TV to be able to view the PC meeting live and submit comments and questions in real time. While I understand that we are dealing with unusual times, the rights of the people be able to actively participate in Town of Farragut meetings in as close a way as attending a meeting in person is critical. Town of Farragut and Goodall Homes still has a chance to be good neighbors and listen to the voice of the people who are residents of the Town of Farragut and neighbors to the new development on the Ivy Farm property. I'm once again asking Town of Farragut and Goodall Homes to be good neighbors in regards to activities and issues related to the Ivy Farms development. I appreciate the time and effort that the MPC members devote to the MPC I also appreciate the opportunity to submit the comments. Thank you. Next, comments from Shane Frank, 12924 Pecos Road. Live on Pecos Road in Saddle Ridge subdivision and have since 2010. I do not live on the side of Pecos that is planned to connect to the Ivy Farms. However, I have expressed opposition to this connection in the past by sending comments to members of the Board of Mayor and Alderman. I see that the connection to Pecos is now all but complete. I'm in opposition to Pecos Road being open to automobile traffic from the Ivy Farm subdivision. We have lots of families, including my own, that walk and bike on that road. We try to stay off the main Saddle Ridge Road because of heavier traffic. But this connection will increase the traffic on Saddle Ridge and also on Pecos. Saddle Ridge has no sidewalks in the lower part of the subdivision, and the road is quite narrow. I believe pedestrian safety will be greatly compromised by this connection. I'm also aware of the traffic impact study. I'm also not aware of the traffic impact study ever being performed. Most of all, I do not see any positives from this connection. Most subdivisions do not have more than one entry and exit, and very few connect to different subdivisions. I also foresee someone following slow traffic down Saddle Ridge or Ivy Farm subdivision, and then trying to take faster exit out to Union in an attempt to get in front of the slower traffic. I see this happen often in Union and Everett roads. I know the current standards require subdivisions to have more than one entry and exit, but Saddle Ridge is old enough that it does not require that. I know that Fox Run on the other side of Ivy Farms has only one exit. People of Saddle Ridge are citizens of Farragut and do not want this connection outside of Saddle Ridge. I would say it's difficult to find anyone other than those that have some financial stake in Ivy Farms that really cares if the connection is made. The only people that seem to benefit from this are the developers of Ivy Farms, since that subdivision, as I understand it, would be required to have two exits. Please reconsider making this connection. If you must make the connection, please keep the gate up and only open it when certain extenuating circumstances. Thank you. And then the last comment is Jeffrey Kendall at 12804 Pecos Road. This public comment is being submitted to focus the entire commission on the ill-conceived Pecos Road connection between the Ivy Farms development and Saddle Ridge neighborhood. I wanted to focus on a few issues specifically in addition to those we have raised since late 2018, which, to refresh, have included: one, the decreased public safety and threat to our community resulting from unimpeded traffic along the 0.2 mile straight strip through the hub of our neighborhood, which has high pedestrian traffic by way of travel by foot, bike, and other means down to our clubhouse, pool, tennis courts, playground, and lending library. 2, increased theft and robbery risk. 3, no traffic impact study conducted to date. 4, poor sequencing and planning as it relates to the Kingston Pike connection to Union Road improvements, which will result in the development of bad traffic patterns on and overuse of Pecos Road. 5, town staff rejecting community policy considerations in favor of checking a box to allegedly satisfy 2 points of access requirement in the regulations when the regulations explicitly allow for the commission to allow for one public street for regular vehicular access into and out of developments while maintaining 2 emergency fire apparatus roads. Gate installation being allowed under the town regulations and International Fire Code, and the town not pushing the developer petition for this. And 7, the bad precedent misnomer that has been dispelled by Andy Lupini through his research on roads closed to vehicular traffic throughout Farragut, and the inverse bad precedent established by creating undue health safety risks through the increased vehicular hazards that are being approved. Over the past month, there have been additional issues seen at the site that reflect Goodall Homes' poor project management and inability to manage its subcontractors. First, the development was left in disrepair for months, resulting in at least 3 flood events that were captured and filmed on July 31st, August 6th, and August 13th. Ms. Saul and the town took the proper action by issuing Goodall a notice of violation and a nominal fee for the first occurrence. Second, Goodall subcontractor was caught and fined for stealing unmetered water to clean up the debris that was carried down Pecos Road. Third, Goodall subcontractors recently began work at 6 a.m. and ended well after 8 p.m. Their work on the west side of the site literally shakes their homes, exhibiting complete disregard for our community. The town has requested them to not start work before 7 a.m., which is appreciated. However, these three examples exhibit poor project and site management being exhibited, and the fact that Goodall Homes does not have the qualifications or expertise to execute this project properly. Further, there still remains an unaccounted for deficiency in the final plat that was adopted related to the plan for the second access point at Pecos Road, not complying with the 2012 International Fire Code Section D104.3, which is required by Section D107. That relates to having two separate fire apparatus access roads a certain distance apart. Section D104.3 provides where two access roads are required, they shall be placed a distance apart equal to not less than 1/2 of the length of the maximum overall diagonal dimension of the property or area to be served, measuring a straight line between accesses. The two access points don't even come close to meeting this requirement as it relates to Saddle Ridge and Ivy Farms. This issue was initially raised to the town by the citizens in late June, and Mr. Shipley was helpful in providing us with requested Ivy Farms project files. Those files confirmed our suspicion as Fire Marshal Dan Johnson flagged the secondary fire department access road at Pecos and the plan's failure to demonstrate compliance with Section D104.3. There is nothing else in the file that we were able to obtain that indicates the issue raised during the initial review is ever resolved. So we have been left in the dark and provided with only as much information as the town has provided. This issue was raised with Goodall's attorney, who indicated for a series of weeks that he was investigating the issue. On August 3rd, 2020, we received an email from the fire marshal that misstated the relevant IFC provision and attached a plat that attempted to show compliance with the remoteness provisions in Section D104.3. The materials sent appear to have been created that morning. They were not part of the project file we were provided with prior, and the calculations exhibited are flawed on multiple levels. Mr. Sayers requested clarification, and there's not been a substantive response to date. Following the receipt of the troubled remoteness demonstrative from Mr. Johnson, we followed up with Goodall's attorney on August 10 to understand the conclusion of their investigation. And all that he indicated was, I understand the town is preparing a response. We have yet to get closure on this issue and request that the MPC direct staff to address this issue directly with the Saddle Ridge requesters. I'm still being asked about this by many people on our Saddle Ridge listserv who were made aware of the issue in July. Please continue to hold Goodall Homes and its subcontractors accountable. And that is the last comment I have on that, on the citizen forum.
Any comments from any of the commissioners or mayor and vice mayor? Well, that completes our agenda. I would mention one thing at the end of our meeting tonight. Since the mayor was notified today that the governor will be signing an executive order next week that's going to extend the current use of the remote electronic method for public meetings like this one through September the 30th. So it looks like next month's meeting will be handled the same way, electronically. And with that, and I wish to everybody to stay safe so we can all be here next month.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Mark.
This meeting is adjourned.